You're listening to the Legion of Reason.
Okay, welcome to episode 210 of the Legion of Reason, where we do not put the car chases on gratuitously. They actually have something to do with the plot. What do we got today? We got a whole bunch of little stories. The Google Manifesto that's been going around, decrying diversity. We'll take a look at that. Maybe a bit more on the authoritarian left and the entertainment industry. A new study is showing that white men still dominate in movies. Well, duh. Another inane character hit piece against a so-called new atheist. This time Richard Dawkins is the target, and this is in Salon. And Jerry Coyne weighs in on that as well. The first rule of a Malaysian atheist club: don't post pics about Malaysian atheist club. Otherwise the government will come after you. Acupuncture cured Angelina Jolie's Bell's palsy, or so she thinks. And there might be other stuff. I think there's an Australian cafe which is charging 18% more for men. And of course that's because of the so-called wage gap. Trying to rectify that. Okay, so but we have with us today Paul from Paulogia. Is that how you'd like to be introduced as?
Sure, that works really well.
Paul
I
from
go with
Paulogia.
apologia, which is the take on the Greek for apologia, but it's pronounced every way possible because Greek's a dead language, so whatever you like.
Well,
Tell us a bit more about your channel and stuff.
Sure.
Remind us, I should say, because you're returning.
I'm returning, but starting in January, I have a YouTube channel called Apologia, in which I'm a former Christian, and I examine the claims of Christians, specifically, most specifically, the ministries, in quotes, of Ken Ham's Answers in Genesis, because they had a key role in turning me from a Christian to an atheist.
Oh,
and
you got to tell us about that. Come on, that you can't leave us hanging.
Okay. The real brief version is, as a lot of Christians have, I was suffering some real cognitive dissonance in my head about science facts that I was hearing versus what I was being taught, in Bible school and church. I was a young Earth creationist, and just that, as you hear things, you can't help but in this culture overhear things. And so one day I decided, well, I am going to try and solve this, and I'm going to set out to prove that young Earth creationism is scientifically viable. So of course you start with Ken Ham's Answers books. And I read through those, and they were so obviously garbage, even though I believed everything he believed. They were so obviously terrible that I was embarrassed. I was like, I guess I better go find, what do secular scientists say about this stuff? I mean, it was the apologetics was so terrible and transparent, even to a follower. So I kind of credit him in a way. It's not like I'm mad at him. I kind of credit him in a way for being so terrible at his job.
Ken, another success story here. Yay. Way to go, Ken.
Well, that reminds me of what's her name that died, the psychic, when she passed away. How many people had turned to skepticism because of her?
Yeah. Or
absolutely.
People
Sylvia
Brown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or as Ben Radford likes to say, the convicted felon Sylvia Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're trying to get Twyla on.
I think I'm here.
Oh, you're here.
Yeah,
You're here.
yeah.
Yay, you're here. Good.
My phone works, but not my computer.
Oh, wait. Well. Okay. Just try unplugging and plugging it back in a few times, and maybe that'll work. Who
Yeah.
knows?
It's a really old computer. That's my next purchase, so.
Oh, good. Yeah. So, tonight, what do we got? Where do we want to start? Anybody got anything in particular they want to start with? No? Yes? No?
Doesn't matter.
Pick on celebrities. Pick on celebrity.
Well,
woo.
we can do that.
Yeah.
Angelina Jolie, she this is from CTV News here. I'm going to post the actual website. There we go. She reveals that she had Bell's palsy, which is it actually is the most common form of single-sided face. What's the word I'm looking for? Paralysis. There we go. My mother actually has this. She's one of the people who has not recovered. But as you pointed out earlier, Twy, that people recover from Bell's palsy usually on their own. And
within a month. And it's usually associated with viral infections.
Yeah, or stress, that kind of thing. So something like a measles virus,
Flu.
chides in the nerves. Yeah, and she credits acupuncture for her marvelous recovery, miraculous recovery, she probably would say. Not much of a miracle, to be quite honest. Yeah.
I don't think she'd say miraculous. She's an atheist.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is just evidence that you can be an atheist and still believe weird things.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
You know, there's nothing saying that atheists are inherently more rational than other people. They just have one major belief system, less, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, it's a big one. That whole religion thing is a big one.
Well, and there's a lot of details missing about her particular condition. It doesn't say how long she had it. It doesn't say what else she tried. And the fact that the articles don't mention that it usually doesn't matter. If you try anything, it does get better. It's on its own, usually.
Yeah.
So all those details are missing in these news stories.
Of course. That's what passes for modern journalism. Especially in the entertainment industry. It's even worse in science. I mean, basically, in science, when journalists cover science stories, they just take the press release and that's it. They don't actually get any deeper into the details. So some things might be seen as sham science, and some things might be even more interesting if you'd actually asked questions.
But even worse than that is they take legitimate scientific studies and report on them, but they're so hyperbolic that you can't even pay. So everything overturns physics and everything overturns biology. Like it's like every single discovery overturns everything we've ever known, which feeds into the narrative for anti-science people that, well, science changes literally every week. Yeah. And so how can we rely on it?
It's one of the pillars that it's missing. One of the pillars of science is repeatability, and that a single study doesn't mean much. It could be a false positive, and subsequent studies may completely demolish. But you never hear about those. You just hear about the one sensational one, and people kind of take it to mean, oh, this is for sure, right? No, just wait for the, studies from other labs. It's a pillar that is completely lost. I mean, that whole repeatability thing is completely lost on not just journalists, but lay people as well. They don't. They tend to look at single studies and rate them as highly as, in terms of credibility, as a meta-analysis from the Cochrane Institute, for instance. I mean, can't do that. Single studies don't mean much.
And
Go ahead, Twy.
Well, they go by the hypothesis rather than the discussion and the results.
Yeah.
And that's completely sideways.
But I agree with what Paul said too. I remember like a few years back, it was some kind of thing that the University of Calgary had accomplished or discovered or whatever, right? And there was a newspaper article that said, was Darwin wrong? And at the, in the fine print at the conclusion of the article, no, Darwin, this just reconfirms the theory. And just like, must you, like the headline is just like,
yeah, the headline
it's a clickbaity thing, but it's also very misleading, right?
Yeah, Darwin wasn't totally correct either, but
well, of course not. Yeah. Just like
yeah, he did not know about genes, for instance. He did.
Yeah,
which is kind of odd because he actually had the journal that had Mendel's work with peas.
Mm-hmm.
That showed that there's a unit of inheritance, and so we're not sure completely whether he was aware or not, but we think not. So,
apparently, he was sent a paper.
Yeah, Mendel's study was a little too good from the from the experimental design. His results were a little bit too good. he was right, but it was a little too neat and tidy from a statistical perspective, and it seems like he fudged his numbers a bit.
It wasn't repeatable yet. So
well, at that time,
not a lot of those people were doing those studies. So they had one. They don't put, well, being scientists, they didn't put a lot of merit in one paper either. So.
Well, back then they weren't. They were natural philosophers. They weren't. Scientist wasn't really a vocation. So much. It was kind of something that the well-to-do did.
Yeah,
there are some
and Mendel
notable
was a
exceptions.
monk.
Yeah, Mendel was a monk.
So,
yeah.
How much merit did they give a monk?
Yeah, we have this.
Plus, like
those days,
plate
probably a lot.
tectonics, right? The theory of plate tectonics
Oh, that
wasn't
was a
taken
long
seriously.
time. Yeah, it wasn't taken seriously for quite a while, because I remember in the 70s learning about plate tectonics, and they were just kind of like, well, this might be. Of course, now it's obvious. But,
yeah.
Well, there's more evidence now.
Well, and it's much more accepted. Lynn Margulis's hypothesis that mitochondria were symbiotic bacteria was very controversial, but it's now pretty much accepted. The evidence should have been obvious. Circular DNA is something that is peculiar to bacteria.
Yeah.
It's things like that. But Margulis has also had some rather nutty other ideas that kind of get swept up under the carpet.
There's a few scientists with acceptable, like the man that came up with the choking hold.
Oh, yeah.
Is that Linnaeus?
Heimlich.
No. Heimlich, yeah. He had some other crazy ideas, though.
Well, Linus Pauling.
Put a lot...
Linus Pauling was one of the most brilliant minds of the 20th century, and he was a believer in vitamin C curing everything from the common cold cancer.
Everything.
Yeah.
So a lot of science was out there, but who knew how to pull it all together? We eventually do.
Well, that's because it's a consensus. It's
back in Darwin's time, you're going to have a monk, and you're going to go, oh, that's interesting, but you're not going to really realize the weight of what Mendel did at the time, I don't think.
Yeah, that was it started a whole ball rolling in terms of how we looked at inheritance, inherited traits, and of course it's ballooned now that we're splicing genes and actually getting rid of diseases. That's something that's been a hot button topic with the ethicists, because we're going to have designer babies. No,
a baby without cancer. Oh my God!
Terrible, isn't it?
A baby without Huntington's. A baby without schizophrenia. I think as a human being, if I had the choice of having schizophrenia or not, I'll take the designing, please.
Sure. But God's the ultimate designer, right?
Because he's so wonderful when there's babies without brains.
Yeah.
That's great design.
That's because Eve ate an apple.
Yes.
That biatch.
That bitch. Yeah. Total. Yeah. Terrible.
Baby must have committed some sin in utero or something, I guess, eh?
That's even worse than the IRS. The IRS doesn't go after the kids.
Yeah.
Instead, God goes after Adam and Eve's descendants for all time. It's like, wow, man, that's something else. How did you, as a Christian, deal with that?
You very much were, sins of the father was definitely one of the accepted things, and you just deal with it in terms of, it's the same way the worst murderer or the worst anyone, you can accept Jesus and everything gets forgiven, right? So it's your get free card. You can, it's a weird way. Christianity lets you absolve all responsibility. In that, you can. I used to have Bible school friends who would do just awful things, and they would joke that it's like, well, I'm building my testimony.
Wow.
Because if you weren't a drug addict or if you hadn't done all those things, you don't have a great story to tell about how you were saved, right? But
wow.
No. So obviously, but this whole idea that you can be guilty. I didn't see it for some reason. I didn't see the disproportionality of not only that punishment, or the fall that nature was cursed because of one sin. But the proportionality of what could any human possibly do to deserve infinite torture forever, right? Even the worst human being on earth, do they deserve their crimes are finite, right? I can only kill so many million people. Right? It's a finite number. So it's just one of those. Again, it feeds into that cognitive dissonance I was talking about before. You're taught authoritarianism. You're just taught that you're taught to think authority down, top down, and you don't try and put two and two together. Thinking is not in their best interest.
Wow.
That's interesting because something I noticed when I was growing up was that the religious kids of cops and kids that were came from very religious families, maybe even leaders. When the minute they got away from that, they were the most badass kids, doing that. And I knew it was because kind of like the forbidden fruit kind of thing, but also I hadn't, thought of it as like the development of a testimony. It kind of, that helps it make sense even more now, right?
Yeah, it was not subconscious. But. That's
hilarious. Yeah. Some, the religious kid, holy crap, I would never do the stuff you're doing. And, you're supposed to be religious, right?
Yeah. But this article...
Oh, very good.
I was going to say, this article of Angelina Jolie just... if we're going to transition to Dawkins, I mean, it really ties in the need for science popularizers, because the people like Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and Richard Dawkins are big targets, and they have broad messages that aren't always as tight as we would like, or that their personalities exactly what we want. But that role is just so important to have somebody out there that isn't Fox News telling people what science is happening, and that there's frankly there's an eclipse coming on Thursday in the States, right? It's like that's super important.
Somebody asked for that to be rescheduled, not during school hours.
Good luck.
Yeah, Chum's just gonna cancel it.
We'll just reschedule that.
It's
for
fake
later.
News. It's fake news. The eclipse is fake news. There's no eclipse.
Some mother. It was so embarrassing.
Oh.
Wow.
That is. She was serious. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So reschedule the moon. Come on, moon. Just move slowly, and then
Yeah. So we're segging into Salon's hit piece on Richard Dawkins, are we?
Sorry to do that to you.
No. Only I can seg. No. This is by Jeremy Lent, The Dangerous Delusions of Richard Dawkins. There's some there's a
most
part
of them
in here
straw men.
Yeah, they're all straw men. Where was this it basically misunderstands the whole metaphor of the selfish gene. Just that genes act selfishly. It's a personification. It's not creating selfish people, even though evolutionary behavior does predict, or evolutionary psychology does predict that we will have a combination of altruistic and selfish behaviors. It's a very complicated thing.
Ooh, shocking.
But, this guy takes it to mean that, it's hard capitalism. And I don't know where capitalism came from in this. It was bizarre. I mean, it's bad economic theory, and I'm just like, what? He plugs his own book, of course, The Patterning Instinct. I don't think I'm going to be reading that anytime soon.
Well, is capitalism then just selfishness? In his mind? Is that where he's coming from? It is.
Yeah, I think there is a very leftist bent to him. Jerry Coyne actually went and took a look at this think tank that he belongs to. Let me see if I can find Jerry's. Yeah, here. It's really quite... It's a lot of gobbledygook. So it belongs to some movement called Lilology. It's not Leology, or I don't even know how to pronounce it. It sees our human organism as an integrated whole. What does that mean?
System theory.
So liology sees no fundamental split between rigorous science and the source of meaning in life.
Yeah, well, there you go. New
What?
bullshit. And you know what really shocked me
says
is that
there is
this
meaning?
book that the guy, the book that the guy published was the book was published by Prometheus Books, which was started by what's his name, Howard.
Was it Michael Shermer?
Kurtz. No, Kurtz.
Okay, Paul Kurtz.
Paul Kurtz. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know what he would he be turning over in his grave? Yeah, maybe.
That's terrible.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
I don't want to be
somebody
too critical
wasn't.
here, but
Somebody fell asleep at the switch.
I guess so. Yeah.
But Jerry Coyne takes a look at this article and makes kind of boils it down into a few points. And first point is Dawkins' ideas are wrecking the planet by encouraging unbridled capitalism, selfishness, wealth inequality, and a rampant reductionism that will wreck the truly holistic and interconnected view of life that we must embrace to save our planet. And then he says, I kid you not.
Scapegoat. Hello.
I don't think Dawkins ever really talked about capitalism.
Never. I mean, he's a biology guy, not an economics guy.
Well, and he also made it very clear that evolution is not meant to be a moral philosophy. It's meant to be scientific.
It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
This is,
In fact, don't apply that to the moral realm. Is what Dawkins has quite explicitly stated.
Yeah, you can't.
It's genetics, not the brain. If you can't separate genetics from the whole human, which apparently these people cannot do, then you should just shut up instead of making all of these straw men and. This is a slippery slope too. Oh, genes are selfish, therefore humans are selfish. No.
Yeah, that was point 2. It's it's a lot of things, but it's the biggest thing is a straw man. That's a complete misunderstanding of the selfish gene.
Yeah, the whole
Obviously
article
the guy
is just
hasn't
like
read it.
It's a
bizarre.
common one, though. It's a common one.
But
Yeah.
even if it was entirely
perpetuated.
true, if it was entirely 100% accurate, everything this person said makes zero difference.
Yeah.
In my circles, we call this an argument from consequences.
Consequences, yeah.
It does not
Exactly.
matter. The science is true whether the consequences are real and terrible or not. And if you go to what if every doctor went, you know what, I don't want to give you this true diagnosis because, man, that would sure ruin your day. That's not the way science. That's not the way science works.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I actually run into that kind of thinking with the whole idea of judgment. Is that okay? Well, don't you want there to be judgment for all the bad people? I'm like, it doesn't matter what I want.
Yeah,
After,
or
To
discrimination.
That doesn't mean it
is
exists.
That's not the only judgment either. We have our own frickin' laws too.
Sure.
Yes,
No,
this person will get punished if there's evidence.
The worst part about that argument is, let's say, someone, someone rapes someone, and they're going to get theirs in the end, but they repent in jail, and then they become, then there's no judgment. Then that whole judgment argument goes away because Christianity offers the outcard for that. So
it's like
ridiculous.
Matt Dillahunty says, mercy is the suspension of justice. And that's exactly right. I mean, there's no justice. Hey, okay, here's the key to heaven. There you go. You've repented. The point number 3.
There's so many.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. All there's lots of things that Dawkins, and thank goodness he's not on Twitter anymore. And he's a hero of mine, and he helped me. I kind of from Ken Ham to Dawkins, which was obviously great for me. There's so many things to criticize him for. These things are ridiculous. I can almost see some of the points, although his recent experience with not being able to speak is almost more ridiculous than this, and I'm sure you covered that in length. But
the third point that Jerry Coyne brings up about this hit piece is that is one I hear quite often from I'm sorry, I've got to go into pejorative here. The artsy-fartsy types. I've heard this before, and I just despise it. And that is, Dawkins' reductionism and naturalism have taken the joy out of life. You know why scientists do science? Because there is wonder in nature. Right?
And how things actually work. In fact, it's far more beautiful than, the moon's made out of green cheese.
Yeah, and the fourth one was Dawkins' reductionism is not only untrue, but is ruining the earth. I'm just like, yeah, that's kind of weird. Of course, reductionism is a methodology. You know, it's taking a look at the individual parts of the whole. And I don't know. The whole thing was kind of, just incoherent. It was one long this was a screed. Okay, when we're coming to something else, they call it a screed. It wasn't a screed. It was a very well constructed thing. But this thing in Ceylon was just a screed, and there's a link that supposedly goes to how to a site that shows how the selfish gene has been what's the term? It's been debunked by science, even though it hasn't been. It's still used in biology, and it's alive and well, as Jerry Coyne pointed out.
And not only that, from that came memes. And how many people share memes without understanding how it originated?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Genes get passed on. They get passed on if, for the most part, they're successful. And it could be successful in this situation, but not in that one. If you have a meme about Dawkins, where is it going to be successful? Is it going to be successful in the conservative Bible-thumping circles? No. It might be successful if it's a good, sound meme in the science circles. So for them to say it's been debunked when everybody uses something that originated from that book constantly every day and demonstrates how genetics actually kind of works through the electronic system, it's kind of funny for them to say that it's been debunked.
I'll read the last paragraph here, and it's just astounding in its inanity. Okay, quote, ultimately, the crucial issue is not about canceling his appearance on a radio show, but it wasn't a radio show, it was a talk that he was giving at Berkeley. But anyway, but recognizing that just as religion has caused millennia of suffering based on delusional ideas, Dawkins himself has created a new delusional framework offering a false rationale for an economic and technocratic system destroying human and natural flourishing. The choice is not between religion and science, as Dawkins and his followers suggest. The real choice is between a flawed worldview that leads inexorably to globally destructive behavior and one that recognizes life's deep interconnectedness and humanity's intrinsic responsibility within it.
It's nice to know someone who can't understand anything takes... Wow. Go ahead.
This sounds like somebody who's trying to interpret Chopra in a more sensible, but it's still a bunch of nonsense, right?
Well, it is. This guy subscribes to the Gaia hypothesis, which is this
and this whole
bullshit
reductionism and science and how it's supposed to, I'm like, how do you solve a problem without reducing it to its elemental parts, right? Like, yes, you can and the two reciprocate. Like, reductionism and science feeds the bigger picture.
It gives us an idea
so
of
it's
how
a
the whole works.
Yeah, it's this reciprocity of I don't know, I guess, method.
Well, yeah, it's like saying, like figuring out how water hydrates things destroys the whole beauty of hydration. Really?
Yeah.
But you're saying that it's hot to get wet.
Oh boy. X-rated show we're at now, eh?
If you're dressed in winter wear and you're in the wind, you might die.
I was just paraphrasing. Hey, what the hell? Okay.
Well, I had something to say, but I completely forgot it now.
Well, that's what this guy does. He takes the beauty of why something works and makes it ugly. Oh, you're taking away the beauty of my Gaia hypothesis, which is complete shit.
Yeah. Just like because you can look at the world through the lens of science doesn't mean that you can't also, look out at the stars and see the beauty of the universe and this sort of thing. Like, I don't understand this thinking. Like, well, it's just so polarized. The discourse is extremely polarizing and, like you say, nonsensical, but in a syntactical way that
it's a
makes
little
it
more
more
syntactically
sensible.
correct.
More sense.
Coherent.
Than Chopra, but same shit, different package.
Yeah, it's the same kind of woo-woo.
And if he can't understand, if he can't integrate knowledge with his own Gaia hypothesis and still find it beautiful, that's his problem.
Yeah, because there are atheists who kind of embrace that Gaia thing.
It's just interconnected. It's equilibria is what easily explains the things that the Gaia hypothesis is supposed to explain. It's just equilibria.
And it adds that extra layer of language on that makes it outside the realm of the empirical and brings it into this linguistic sphere of almost a supernatural, right? You can tell.
And that's fine. if figuring out how equilibrium works destroys the beauty of Gaia for you, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, the Gaia hypothesis, also known as Gaia theory, I'll put that in quotation marks. Give me a break. Proposes that organisms interact with their inorganic surroundings on Earth to form a synergistic, self-regulating complex system that helps to maintain and perpetuate the conditions for life on the planet. Doesn't it sound like something like climate denial?
It's a woo-woo word for ecosystem. It's ecosystem.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
It's all equilibrium.
And maybe more broader. I don't, like including our interaction with the sun and blah 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 kind of thing, right? Like energy.
Well,
the sun and you can make it sound like a bunch of bullshit magic by throwing those terms in and throw quantum. Was the word quantum in that article? I didn't search.
Maybe. Well, the thing is, the sunlight is actually inorganic. So if you want to think of things still as, if you can find beauty in, if you want to do all that, and then I can still believe some of that Gaia stuff, but I'll just say, well, yeah, we interact with the sun. Yeah, if we destroy the way sunlight gets to us by polluting the atmosphere, well, you're not going to have equilibrium.
I hear, like, in the same way I can enjoy some new agey beliefs. Like, I think aromatherapy is very nice, but I don't think it has any supernatural or spiritual qualities about it. It just makes my house smell nice or whatever, right? Relaxing but I don't have to
covers up those bathroom smells.
And restores your you don't have the ick factor. Yay.
Well, if you try to relax, lighting a nice scented candle, there's no harm in that. Or, taking a bath with
burn
nice
the house down.
Well, I'm not suggesting that you would ever leave a candle unsupervised, to be clear, right? But, if you're, I don't know, that's why people light candles over dinner and have that aroma of, good cooking smells and stuff like that. It's a sensory experience that, is enjoyable.
Lighting, it's romantic.
Yeah, all those things are.
That's really olfactorily ableist. You're oppressing the people who don't have any sense of smell. Oh, I'm
sorry.
There are people like that. Well, therefore they can enjoy the ambience, the lighting.
The olfactory challenged. Olfactorily, I don't know what the word is.
I will issue a statement of apology immediately.
Yeah.
Not.
that segs into a few things.
Yeah, it does.
Is Paul still with us?
Yeah, is Paul still with us? Are you there, Paul? Can you hear us?
We might have lost him.
Yeah, we lost him. We might have lost him. Yeah.
You can't hear me?
Oh, there we go. You're back. You're back.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Muted the mic, did you?
Maybe. I have a new puppy who needs attention.
Okay.
So.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
We did hear him in the background. Yeah.
Okay, that's where the bark.
Screw you. We're going with the No God in Trek universe. That's where we're going.
Okay.
Forget the
Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek. This makes sense to me. There was one episode, by the way. This is from the Telegraph. New Trek series confirms there is no God in the Trek universe, and there shouldn't be. Actually,
Mostly.
I completely agree. Yeah. Somebody said in an ad lib line, "For God's sake," and they stopped tape and just said, "No, that's out." And the guy said, "Wait, I can't say God," and I thought I could say God or damn, but not goddamn. Nope, no God. Damn's fine, I suppose. How about for fuck's sake?
Oh yeah, that's.
Can I say that?
Yeah, it's not a. There's
sure,
like
it's on
blasphemous
Netflix.
terms, and then there's obscenities, and fuck falls within the realm of obscenities as opposed to blasphemous terms. But damn should fall within the realm of blasphemous terms. I would think that would be,
Damn.
foreboding.
What if you're talking about beavers? So this makes sense though, because in a future Earth, one would hope religion would be on the wane, in the extreme.
Well, considering how it steps in the way of what could bring us interplanetary travel. I mean, how often do we let religion step between, throughout history, biology even, it was illegal to look at dead bodies for the longest time. We couldn't learn anything. We couldn't learn that disease was caused by microbes because, that's curses from gods. I mean, it does keep us in the Dark Ages.
I caught the episode you guys did about Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And anyway, this, as you say, this makes perfect sense. So I know most people didn't see it, and they shouldn't. But Star Trek V was entirely addressing. Star Trek V was entirely addressing. Is there God in the Star Trek universe? I mean, that's 30 years old by now. It's got to be, or 20 some anyway. I mean, this is not news
30.
that there's no God in the Star Trek universe. So Star Trek V was about, is there a God in their universe? I know Jean-Luc Picard has gone on big rants about how they've given the history, and that we got rid of money, we got rid of religion, got rid of all these So in Gene Roddenberry's version, which Next Generation was still his, this is well defined. So it was obviously just a clickbait title. I mean, and something people to get upset about.
Confirms there is no God. Of course, the character.
Well, there's no God
Q,
in any universe.
who we interviewed on this podcast, Q, right? That was
John Delancey.
Yeah. But that character, the character he played was
God-like.
a very playful way of analogizing God, and particularly the concept of immortality, right?
And all powerful.
So they have Q is kind of like the Greek gods, right? He's very much they've got that analogy with Greek gods. They've already done episodes as well that talked about panspermia, that literally in the Star Trek universe, Klingons and humans and Romulans and all those places, we all came from one alien race that seeded us. That's also canon in the Star Trek universe. So
TNG,
again, if you're a nerd, this is not news.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That's the underlying premise, basically, and everybody knows that Gene Roddenberry is I think he's self-described as agnostic.
Oh, he's
humanist. He was a humanist.
He's a humanist, yeah.
Yeah. That's
but he's
how
an
he
atheist.
self-describes.
He's an
So, yeah. Absolutely.
And I keep saying Ray Bradbury. I hate. I've been doing that for decades. Gene Roddenberry, Ray Bradbury. Get those two straight, Randy. And I did it again. I got him confused. For somebody who has pretty much seen everything Trek, this is the one thing you would think I would not get wrong.
No, it's the sounds of the names Bradbury, Roddenberry. It's just Now you're probably going to put that in my brain, and I'm going to forever confuse the two, which I've never done before.
It's a memetic virus. There you go.
Yeah.
There was an episode, though, in the original series, Bread and Circuses, which was... It's kind of stands out in my mind because it kind of was Christian-y.
Okay.
And it was about an alternate Earth where the Romans still held sway, and they were persecuting people who were sun worshippers, and everybody thought it was S-U-N, but it was S-O-N, of course. Then you got Jesus, and it's not one that I prefer to watch.
But they actually again, they went with the idea that gods were really races of advanced technology and abilities, as opposed to like actual deities.
Not in this one, but yeah, the one with the Greek gods. The Greek gods. That was a different one.
Right.
Okay. I can't remember the name of that one.
Oh,
that was.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm thinking of the one where they actually travel back to a Rome-based planet.
Yeah.
The other thing about this article that I didn't like was that they said there isn't religion in the Star Trek universe, which is very wrong. I mean, they have races all over the place and even people on Earth who have religions.
The only one that matters is the God one. Come on.
Yeah.
They worship all kinds of weird things.
Like the Ferengi and Prophet, right?
There's all kinds of belief systems they come across. And that's the same with human history. Come on.
The Ferengi.
Well, the characters are meant to reflect qualities of humanity, like Worf being sort of this warrior type character. They're archetypes, I guess, right? Of human behavior.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. And of course, then that's the business, the capitalist side of our. Well, I don't know about humanity, but of society for sure. Yeah,
and Worf being sort of the warrior archetype and honorable, right? Honor is a big, part of his character, and that, what are they called? What's Worf again?
He's a Klingon, and they very much had their own version of hell and heaven and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it was reminiscent of the Norse gods, actually.
Yeah, they're Valhalla, really. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Randy, you might have liked the Ferengi better if Deep Space Nine had been like on HBO, because they believed in nudity, although they had to leave that from the show. They didn't like when females wore clothes, so you might have liked that better.
Yeah.
If they moved it to HBO.
I just never got into Deep Space Nine because the captain, what's his name?
Cisco.
Cisco, yeah. No? I did not like him.
Yeah.
I just found him to be a weak. The Ferengi should have run over him. They're all prophet, and that's the thing that the Ferengi characters were very different from those in the Next Generation.
Yeah, but they were interesting. Like there was
different.
What was her name?
They were too human in DS9.
What was her name that had been rescued from the Borg, had escaped the Borg?
Oh, 709. Oh, that was...
Yeah.
She was there as I Come on.
What's that? Well, yeah, for sure. But I don't know. I thought the Ferengi were hilarious. I loved them. I thought they were so funny. And like the bar scenes and stuff like that. They were fucking awesome.
That ear sex thing.
Oh, God, I forgot about that.
Umax, man, I'm a nerd here. All right.
This is going to be our most X-rated podcast ever.
Well, because of Star Trek, of all things.
And because of Randy's, Freudian outburst.
Where do we go? Okay, we're done the Star Trek-y. We can go...
So let's carry on to movies, then.
Movies? Wonderful. Oh, yeah. They... as a representative of the white male society, the what should we call this? The grand order of white maleness.
Male privilege.
White privilege. Yeah. Let's see. Where did I put the? Darn it! Where did I put the whole? Oh man! Don't tell me I didn't put it up.
New York Times.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. I did put it up. Okay. Look who's still talking the most in movies. White man. That's kind of a take on an old 80s movie. Look who's still talking.
That was about a
bad baby movie. Yeah. Wow. It's a weak attempt at humor from the New York Times.
I didn't even pick that up. Wow.
Yeah, I did.
That's how bad it is.
Well, they're alluding to the supposedly making white men out to be children. Or infants. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
New York Times. So they did this a study from the University of Southern California. Of all places, the Viterbi School of Engineering. What the hell? Anyway, they took a look at mapping characters, how much they say, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they've got these two visualizations. One is Dead Poets Society, which is a bunch of blue squares.
Isn't that an all-boys school in that movie?
Yeah, exactly. So, that's your control, right? Okay, that's your control. And Silence of the Lambs, where you have a big red circle, which and little couple of other blue squares, and of course that the Jodie Foster's character is the main, talks the most in there, so she's got the biggest area of her shape, which is a circle. I don't know if there's any sexism in that or somewhere. Okay, I think there is. Men are squares.
Oh.
Hey, that's kind of derogatory.
I don't know about women being circles.
Running around in circles.
It's all about the eggs.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
I was thinking like a hamster wheel or something, you know.
Why squares? We could be sperm shaped. You know, like
I prefer to be a triangle.
Be a triangle. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Inverted triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not inverted.
Well, it depends. Pointing up or pointing down?
Pointing up.
Why pointing up?
Obviously. I don't know. No good reason.
Never mind.
No good
It's
reason.
going to
why
get
I wanna be a
dirtier as we
triangle
go
either,
down
but,
this
you know.
road. So they claim that white men are still dominating in film. And what they want to do, of course, the whole point behind this is to get the film industry to be more diverse and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But they're going at it. I hope they're not listening, because, you know, the social justice people will actually figure out how to do this. The wrong way to do this is to go to the film industry. They won't care.
Yeah.
They won't care.
It's fiction.
It's all about the cash. So whatever sells is going to get made. If all of a sudden camel characters were all the rage, now we're bringing the most, but there would be a ton of camel movies. All right.
Huh?
Yeah, I was going there, but I'm not. I'm not going there. And it's the dollar. You can't force. I hate morality plays. I really despise morality plays because they're fictional. How can you teach a moral from a fictional story? I've never understood that. I mean, Aesop's Fables, couldn't understand it.
I was exactly going to bring that up, because I read that when I was a kid and I could totally understand the moral.
You can understand the moral,
they explicitly spelled them
but
out
did
at
you
the end of the
care?
story.
Did you care? It's a fictional story. Who cares? You can contrive any
but they
moral.
Again, this is the analogizing of animals, talking animals with archetypes of humanity, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing. But does the moral stick?
Yeah, I do remember that. You know, I often cite that because as a kid I got that. You know,
I just don't.
Well, sour grapes.
I can't get my head around trying to
Yeah.
moralize from a fictional situation, because you can contrive the exact opposite as being the correct course of action. It all depends on your story. So you can make anything up.
Sure.
And so what's the point?
Because they're metaphors for human archetypes.
Okay, my eyes glazed.
I mean,
my ears glazed over there.
we well, okay, so when you read a great work of literature, that informs you about something of, you know, to do with humanity. It's not an empirical investigation. It's more like a, I don't know, artistic insight into, say, another culture, another time, or, you know, right? Read a historical novel and you
okay.
That, yeah.
Okay.
You just talked about Star Trek. You learned stuff from Star Trek.
Absolutely.
Like gravimetric. Blah, 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 blah. Captain, the dilithium crystals that are cracked.
So can I have 90 seconds to rail about the study on this?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Because I think
but I have to say something really quick.
Go ahead.
This red circle thing, I'm really offended because it reminds me of my period.
This is just degrading.
That's why I want to be a triangle. Please proceed, Paul, and I
The
apologize for
triangle.
that.
No, I'm not going to say it.
Don't
I'm not
worry.
gonna say it.
So those of you anyone who listens to this who may follow my YouTube channel probably knows a little bit that I worked for Lucasfilm for a long time. So I was in the film industry for a long time. My degree is in computer science. So one of my degrees is computer science. So this is like the perfect cross section of the two things that I am good at. So the film industry and computer science. And as you noted, this is a computer science paper, not a sociology paper, not a psychology paper. This is actually I went and read the paper, and I read what was available in the paper, and it's a study in computer science, mapping linguistics. It wasn't actually intended to provide these conclusions. Anyway, but their methodology was terrible. So the headline, which drove me crazy, was that despite Wonder Woman and Girls Trip, movies are still sexist. Well, I went and read the paper. Well, they've used films from the last 50 years in this study. They did 1,000 scripts. So films from 50 years ago, films from 1960 are in this study.
Yeah,
so it's like
weird.
that.
Things haven't changed.
Does not tell me That does not tell me what the trend is in movies. That doesn't tell me that Rogue One last year had no white males in it. It doesn't tell me that Wonder Woman and Girls Trip are doing great this year. The conclusions are obviously not there. You can't study over 40 years of art and call that a trend. The other thing that drove me crazy was I looked at their source of their scripts. They pulled 1,000 scripts from Internet Movie Script Database, which is a fans transcribe movies and put them up on this website. So imagine what kind of movies that someone has a fan who's willing to spend their Saturday night transcribing the script. It's not Citizen Kane. It's not Kramer versus Kramer. It's not like the typical art films. They're transcribing Terminator. They're transcribing Star Wars films. This is not a representative sample in any way, even of the last 50 years, if that's what they wanted to do. So on my channel, I always click first for the paper, and I always read the paper, and it just drives me crazy that the reporters don't even give us the same consideration. Because this is just ridiculous. It gives us nothing about trends. Absolutely nothing.
Thank you.
Male-dominated movies over the last 50 years are male-dominated. Awesome. That's it. I'm done.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of a self-serving conclusion. I mean, it's and only 1,000. Only 1,000 scripts.
And the guy who did it wasn't like their intention. Their intention was trying to see whether they could take language, analysis a step further. They were trying to just see if they could analyze, fictional characters, and things like try and pick up trends. The people who did the paper, as you say, they were engineers. They have absolutely no basis in sociology. That wasn't their intent. But of course, that's, as we talked about, that's how popular it was reported by the popular media. So.
Yeah, somebody made a drive-by comment on this story. I mentioned Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters was a train wreck. It was a terrible movie. It never should have been made for a number of reasons that have nothing to do with women being in the cast. The number one reason I think it should never have been made is because Harold Ramis is dead. And Harold Ramis, without his writing abilities and involvement, just doesn't make it a Ghostbusters movie. It's just simply not. So, but my wife also said, don't watch it. I trust my wife's tastes. It's I think an example of forcing ideology into something that should be just about entertainment, about being entertained. That's it. And that kind of thing drives me nuts. And one prime example of why that fails, when it's obviously being injected, ideology is obviously being injected. Have you ever heard a show called Pitch?
Yeah.
You have. Okay, one.
Pitch Perfect. Which one?
No,
not Pitch Perfect.
Not Pitch Perfect. Pitch.
Is it baseball then?
Yes, it's baseball.
Yeah.
And it is about the first female pitcher in the major leagues.
Yes.
That is a completely unbelievable premise. Unless it's a trans woman. Okay, I can buy that. There will not ever be a female pitcher in the major leagues. Just never going to happen. Unless, of course, we get into designer babies, but that's beside the point. It's just not going to happen. But the physiology just dictates it's not going to happen. So it died. It died very quickly when it ran from September 16th of last year to December 16th or something, and that was it. Second reason it failed, I think, is because people that are interested in these kinds of things like diversity, etc., are absolutely uninterested in watching a baseball show. And vice versa. People that are interested in watching a show about baseball are not interested in diversity. They're just not. Take it or leave it. That is what it is. And
okay, but how do you explain League of Their Own? If you want to give those two premises.
I was a movie. Okay, a movie. One, it had Tom Hanks as a selling point. Don't underestimate that. Have you ever seen On Any Given Sunday?
Of course.
Yeah,
I shouldn't say of course. Yes,
because you're a white male.
Yeah.
How much of that movie was really about football?
Well, very little, and like that's where. So
exactly.
Sports are humans. Yeah. Sports are human stories. That's what
made it awesome.
There's a couple of great tennis movies coming up that I'm only peripherally interested in tennis, even though I used to play it, and it's like no, I'm totally interested in the stories.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know that the subject matter puts it completely off limits. Is all I was gonna.
If In a League of Their Own had been a TV series, it would have died just as quickly as Pitch.
They tried it.
Did they? I don't know. They might have. Yeah,
anyway.
I wouldn't surprise me.
But with the C-level cast,
it's very different. Yeah, of course. You don't have the big names.
Gina Davis wasn't Gina Davis in a League.
Gina Davis and Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah. So that alone is going to guarantee a movie gets seen. Okay, like.
Yeah, and it's about a whole team. It's not like if person throwing balls. It's a whole team of ladies and Tom Hanks.
But exactly. If On Any Given Sunday hadn't had Al Pacino, you might not have gone.
Correct.
So that's the real selling point. And in a TV series, is a little bit different. But the premise, when the premise is so outrageous that you can't buy into it, it's doomed to failure. That's what happens when people think that men and women are equal, meaning that they are the same. And I think that was a part of this huge mistake.
Have you guys seen the Wonder Woman movie?
No, but I want to. I want to see that.
Okay, because Wonder Woman. So Twilight, tell me if you agree. To me, what my female friends all seem to love about the film was the no man's land scene. And again, there's not spoilers, but the female hero was every bit as strong as the men. She just handled that situation in a way that was very consistent with female thinking. That the men in the group all said, no, we have to do it one way, and the woman decided she's going to do it another way. The
thing is, she could. She had supernatural powers, and she could. No, but but it was
her thinking. Like that character required. If that had been Captain America, he wouldn't have done it the same way, even though he had the same powers, right?
Yeah,
so
I think. Yeah, he has the same altruism, and he can. So, from my point of view, she could do it. They didn't understand her skills. They didn't understand that thing is so different. Captain America's the same way. He'll put people before stuff. Like, I believe he would have done the exact same thing.
He'll use brute force.
He'll do it. Well, it was both brute force because
I don't want to know. I haven't seen it.
No, that's fine.
But the thing that sold us the most is the fact that she got to be a real woman at the same time. Her thighs jiggled.
That's where I was trying to get to, was that she actually
her thighs jiggled, like her body. Like, she didn't have to be perfect. She didn't have to be. But look at Thor. Do his thighs jiggle? Does anyone care?
Thor is one of the worst characters in the Marvel universe. Just can't
he's so stock character. But
he's so empty of character.
Yeah, he's not like Captain America. Like, he's missing the reason why he's doing things. Like, he's just oh, I can do it. She went and saved people, because she could. No one else, none of those guys had the powers that she did. They would have died if they did what she did. So, from that point of view, I don't understand that.
You're too much of a realist.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. You're not ringing true with what I've certainly heard from, and again, I go to Comic-Con every year, so I may have a skewed perspective on my female friends who thought it was great. I guess I was trying to get back to Randy's point, was that you can't just shoehorn, you can't just flip a switch and say, I'm going to make this character female now, and just keep all the motivations the same and everything else. It doesn't.
Yeah, in this case, it was true to the canon.
True.
It was, her character. That's her persona. I mean, that's exactly true to what she would do.
Well, I'm sorry to all the girls out there, but my daughter still likes Spider-Man better than Wonder Woman.
Well, but anyway,
I guess she's like me. She's like, well, she's still a hero just because she's a woman. I mean, Captain America, I feel, would have done the exact same thing that she would have. Maybe not Thor, but Captain America would have.
The
you guys are marginalizing me. I feel like such a bad parent because my daughter couldn't have this conversation. She knows just as little as I do about the Marvel universe. You guys are marginalizing me.
All right. Well, we'll change that.
Well, I just want to make one more point.
I just have nothing to contribute.
People get upset when you screw with the canon, and the absolute worst, is not Doctor Who. The worst screwing with the canon was Highlander. Oh my God, the sequel was just like, what? He's an alien now? What? It was...
They shouldn't have called it... Here, Randy. I don't like it.
Their first movie, awesome. I love that movie. The second one, just... because I couldn't get around the... having seen the first one, I know this is all wrong.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing they could have done. There's like, and again, they did the absolute worst thing. It's like, oh, there's nothing you can do, so I'm going to kill 50,000 people. No, that's not what the ailment is. There's something between you, something bad. But there can be only one, right?
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Prize.
And then he ended up being the only one.
It's a movie you can't make a sequel.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm hoping when they're rebooting, which is I think they keep trying to reboot it. I'm hoping they make the prize such that it's not so absolute, so they actually can have room to do things.
Yeah, though they might make it a Netflix series or something. Who knows? Maybe. Yeah. But the Highlander TV series wasn't that bad.
It wasn't that bad, but they still had to work within that crappy prequel framework where it's like, we all know where this is ending, so it's hard to care. Which is like that Battlestar Galactica prequel, which is like, why should I care about any of these people? They're all gonna die.
Had any babies to eat lately? Yeah. Okay. Well. Now we've marginalized Christine enough. I guess we can move on. We can move on. Let's move on to when progressives embrace hate. This is a New York Times opinion thing about the leaders of the Women's March, and I think it is pretty darn good. A lot of this I already knew, and it's. Our new favorite character, Linda Sarsour, cockroach.
Yeah.
It's this whole thing. The Women's March was a great idea. I mean, except that it wasn't totally inclusive because they did exclude certain women's groups and especially pro-life groups. But the women that started this have some rather shady associations with things like terrorists, they have this love for Louis Farrakhan, who is a vehement anti-Semite and worse than a racist. He thinks of us crackers as Satanists, that kind of thing. We're demons.
Oh.
And so
he's
just pointing them
whatever.
out. But they've been. I've noticed.
Because we're all the same.
Yeah, exactly. We're all the same. White skin, so all the same experiences. We're all terrible people.
Well, I was just making the analogy with Saudi Arabia considering atheist terrorists, right? I'm a terrorist. I'm a demon. Yeah. All right.
I'm all those things.
Take your best shot.
Baby eater. But this organization has been making some overtures to its followers regarding Assata Shakur as one. They just wished Assata Shakur happy birthday. We talked about that a couple of episodes ago. There's another one who was convicted of trying to kill 6 police officers. I'm trying to find the name of that. Let me see if I can find it. Come on. It's what the heck? I guess Assata Shakur. Oh yeah, Baba Seko Odinga. I hope I'm not butchering that. Actually, I don't give a damn. He's a convicted attempted murderer, and he was a Black Panther. And to revere people, and let's face it, Black Lives Matter is patterned on the Black Panthers, and it's not something you want to be associated with, really. If you're trying to actually create change organically instead of killing people. But anyway, this is the leaders of the Women's March, and they have some rather unholy associations with these unsavory, shall we say, characters. Assata Shakur, Odinga, Louis Farrakhan. And then there was that rebuttal. Do we want to talk about a little bit on this before we go to the rebuttal? I mean, this is all stuff that is public domain. They talk about this. They've tweeted this stuff all the time. And, of course, what's her name? Linda Sarsour comes out and says, it's the alt-right attacking me. Well, not really. You're just kind of painting the target on yourself.
Yeah. I don't think sometimes when the left is attacking its own, then they get slandered as alt-right. They're not. They're often very much on the left. Like, don't get me wrong. I know there's an element of, like horrific racism, that kind of thing. But
Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper was accused of being alt-right by Linda Sarsour because he was attacking her. He's not alt-right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's easy to paint people that way to be able to dismiss them. That's the tactic, right?
Yeah, it avoids the argument.
Yeah, it totally avoids it, and that's
You've
exactly
lost the
what.
Argument.
Well, the rebuttal written by one of these leaders, Bob Bland, doesn't even touch on a single one of these points that was made in the original by Barry Weiss. And just, we've got to stand together, blah, blah, blah. You're like, wait a minute.
No.
She has pointed out some rather, she's made accusations here that you're not even going to deny. And they can't, of course. It's all a matter of public record. And so, like I said, the Women's March originally was a great idea, but it started going a little bit south right away with all the selling of the hijab by Linda Sarsour, and so the normalization of the hijab, which is the fetishization
of the hijab.
Yeah. And the association with Black Lives Matters, etc.
I don't understand what this guy is saying in his rebuttal.
He's not saying
anything. He's saying Ms. Weiss is endorsing a sensational alt-right attack that aims to discredit the Women's March and its leaders.
We just talked about it.
Well, that's not true.
No, it's not. Of course not.
So for him to say that, he's not paying attention.
No, they just don't care, and they just want to, they're in the right. Nobody wants to be in the wrong. I mean, nobody thinks of themselves in the wrong. These people think that not only are they in the right, that they are objectively in the right, and anything that is dissent must be squashed by being labeled as all right. Of course, it doesn't work anymore.
So is this person saying
it's starting
that
not to.
are we just supposed to ignore all that and stand together regardless with these people? Is that what they're saying? Because she's also saying,
Yeah.
I found there were times that were uncomfortable and times that even with as much empathy I could muster, I couldn't relate to someone else's point of view. But let's stand beside these people and not call them out anyways.
Yeah.
Is that what they're saying?
Exactly. And
I think a better way to handle something like that is that, the idea of converging around issues in spite of the fact that you disagree with people that are also interested in that issue, right? Like the exclusion of pro-life women from the march is I think kind of an analogy, right? Those women, even though I disagree, I'm not pro-life, I'm pro-choice.
Yeah, they're still women.
They are. Yeah, and that's just another, like, it's silencing another opinion. And the thought occurred to me, like, how do they, what's their philosophy on sex workers? Would they want to help protect them, or would they want to abolish the, say, I don't know, pornography and that kind of thing, or prostitution? Would they want to abolish that, or would they want to protect those women who are engaged in those industries? That's an important question. I don't remember hearing anything about whether or not women who were on that side of the argument were included or excluded, or what the perspective is on that, right?
Yeah. Well, there's Slut March too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then I'm especially confused by this. It's like, would you stand? I would like to ask this person: would you stand with a KKK member who's against Trump, which probably wouldn't happen?
Yeah, it's a matter of choosing your allies too, right?
Yeah, and they're saying for now, critics like Ms. Weiss are just critics from their seats. Bullshit. Until they get up, listen, and do the work to understand those whose feelings have been shaped by injustice,
there's that
they will remain apologists for the status quo. Hello, this person killed people. And you're saying that we're just supposed to understand how she feels?
I don't care how she feels.
I've been thinking about this concept of, emotional labor and that kind of thing, right? And it's been applied in the context of, say, criticizing an argument or something like that. But then I've been conversing with somebody who's seeking asylum and in a really bad spot and that kind of thing. And I'm trying to help this person. And it's dealing with these cases, which I've, had a fair bit of, correspondence with people who are in some really bad spots. That's emotional labor, right? And to criticize an article in contrast to that, I don't know what to say about that, right?
Well, this is an argument from ignorance. Then the absolute irony here, the person goes on to write, they will remain apologists for the status quo, racist ideology, and white nationalist patriarchy. This person completely hasn't checked the background of Ms. Weiss, I don't feel. But Randy, you said she doesn't care.
No.
He.
This is how they get away from actually dealing with any of the points that she makes. And that is to label your opponent as an alt-right, a racist, etc. And then they don't have to deal with it. It's a tactic that's no longer working.
Yeah, and I might add that the person that I'm trying to help would be extremely critical of the cockroach. And, because of the consequences that are implied on her, that are being ignored by this instantiation of feminism.
Yeah, I don't know what is actually feminist about her.
No, nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, I just don't understand why. It's a reverence for Islam. And
yeah.
Which is a weird thing.
I think it's a reverence for the people that actually have to suffer under those regimes that she doesn't have to, right?
Yeah.
And she's she tries to justify Sharia law, and without.
Oh yeah, that's one of the tweets where she said, it'd be great if with Sharia law because then you wouldn't have to pay back student loans. And I'm like, who would give you a loan in the first place if there's only risk and no gain?
that and let's not forget what you said about Ayaan Hirsi Ali.
Yeah, the taking away
The
her
tweet
vagina.
that after a victim of female genital mutilation.
Yeah,
and
herself,
here I'm not all feminists kind of thing, but here feminists are worshiping this Linda Sisor. I'm trying so hard not to say cockroach, and yet Ayaan Hirsi Ali ends up on the SPLC
it's a hate
list. And by the way, I just want to mention that Majid Nawaz is doing a fundraiser to sue them for defamation or whatever it is, libel, slander, whatever kind of thing, right? So I don't know the web address, but if people want to contribute to that, let's pitch in, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure what stage that is, but that's defamation of character for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. And super dangerous too, like that's basically putting him, I mean, he's already on a hit list, but let's just expose them to more danger, shall we? I mean, that's the attitude here. Yeah. It's terrible. It's unbelievable.
Well, speaking of people in danger, let's go to Reza Aslan's great utopian Islamic state of Malaysia.
Right.
And apparently a bunch of this is why you don't talk about Atheist Club at Atheist Club. Certainly you don't show pictures on the net.
You don't show pictures of everybody there.
Oh yeah, that was not a good idea. Anyway, this is it's a crime for a Muslim to do anything to screw up their faith, apparently. And so what if people don't want to be Muslim anymore? Well, apparently that's a crime, or at least something worthy of investigation.
Of course it is. It's in the text. We know the punishment for apostasy. It's no fucking secret.
So according to Azraf Wajdi, he's I don't know, this is not great English. Jurisdiction on Islamic faith is under the Sharia criminal enactment of each state, while at the federal territories level, it is under the federal territories Islamic religious department.
That's great when you mix religion and government.
Yep, it's just wonderful. This utopian state. He says, if it is proven that there are Muslims involved in atheist activities that could affect their faith, the state Islamic religious departments, or JAWI, could take action. I have asked for JAWI to look into this grave allegation, he told reporters after officiating the Indira Makota Division UMNO Youth Delegates Conference today, whatever that is. So you can never leave, you can't leave Islam. If you were born into a family that practiced Islam, you can't leave. You're not allowed to leave by state law, pretty much.
Yeah, and state law extends even to, here in Canada and the US, and FGM does occur in these places, and it's brought in, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to say that now,
And by the way, this is in Malay Mail Online. Have we lost Paul?
No, we were talking about comic books, so I thought I'd let Chris, have that in for a bit.
Yeah, the unpop-cultured one gets to speak every once in a while.
I mean, part of my concern with this stuff, I mean, obviously, they're not pretending that church and state are separate. They're not even pretending that, so that's all fine. I think eventually, like in Star Trek, there'll be pressure from the UN and from all the other countries to have some level of separation, and I hope that Canada and other countries in the meantime will accept, would accept an atheist as a refugee, for example, or we give them political asylum, in these kind of situations. And I'm involved very peripherally, but with some groups that there are atheists in the ministry, for example, who are pastors, who need some help transitioning out of these things when it's their entire livelihood and family, and there's consequences sometimes for these people. So I get all of that. In a way, what bugs me more was the story, and I don't know if you guys covered it last week, where they were sent in one Muslim country. They have separate church law and then official state law. So, for example, there was there was a man who had raped another woman, and they sentenced his sister to be raped as the punishment.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
And that was, and the government was just hands off. It's like, well, no, this was a religious matter, and religion is allowed to solve their own. They were all Muslims. They're allowed to handle that as an internal matter. When really, so I almost don't mind when states are upfront like this, where they're kind of like saying, no, we're not church and state. We're saying honestly what we are, so at least we can fight the enemy in open territories. Anyway, that's my little screed on this story.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. The government also, they said, carried out numerous programs to strengthen the faith of Muslims from the school level, apart from departments and religious agencies that collaborated in the planning. So these people, they want to strengthen Muslim faith. They do want to keep that as part of law too.
And those people that say, "Oh, it's just their culture," or whatever, they're kind of hands off, are not. The bigotry of low expectations coupled with
moral relativism.
Yeah.
I have no patience for it. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, the Christians would love for this to happen in the USA and Canada. I mean, they would love to have this moral authority over everybody and be able to punish people like this, but
no, I don't think that's true of all Christians.
Not all, no.
Don't generalize.
Let's get Pence. I'm talking about Pence and
yeah.
He would love that.
Yeah, Betsy DeVos would love the freedom to be able to stay in the States. All schools are going to have prayer again and teach, have a Bible study class and all that kind of stuff. They would always love that.
Yeah.
Kick evolution out of the classroom, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, Reza Aslan says that there is no divide between Islam and American culture.
What?
Yeah, which is totally
you know
ridiculous.
What? Please, let's not even say his name anymore.
Oh, okay, yeah. we'll have to come up with
airtime.
We'll have to come up with a different name for him. We'll use a pseudonym.
Yeah.
So guys, First Rule of Atheist Club: don't post photos of Atheist Club. Malaysia.
Especially. And what makes it down. Remember where you are.
Do you know what makes me absolutely almost physically ill? Is maybe I referred a Malaysian person to this group, right?
Yeah.
It makes me almost.
Well, it's sad that in a country in this time, people are going to get hunted down like this.
Yeah, and I've conversed with so many people who are at risk, and try to very much protect their anonymity and their conversations with me, and I really worry about something like that happening. And
so my going back to my earlier point is, you keep electing people like Pence and stuff, you're going to start seeing. I mean, this is a slippery slope, and I hope it's not true, but people like Pence would love to have this kind of control, and if you keep electing people like that and you don't really keep that in the back of your mind, I do fear when people like that start leading, that they'll start trying to skew those lines like that, and then you'll see people getting hunted down for being an atheist.
I totally agree, but I think it would be a hell of a lot harder for Pence to impose a theocracy than those that are already in existence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are existing theocracies, and we should be doing what we can to,
help
I know
them.
we can bring our hands ourselves, but we fortunately are free right now. So we should be using all our resources to help the existing theocracies. And I guess my point about this was, I'm happy when they're openly theocratic like this, because then even I can give this to my Christian family and say, is this okay with you? We can hopefully rally around it. I'm hoping there's political pressure. All this stuff. We need to fight where we can, and
you need to fight it so it doesn't start happening here.
Well, I think we need to fight it just on its own sake. I don't care if it never happens here. right? Like
But
it
then
bothers.
people
Yeah,
use
for
this
sure.
as
Yeah.
a reason to be racist and say, well, it would only be Muslim then. No, it could very well be Christian too. If you allow people to erode your democracy, you need to fight it. You need to help and fight in other countries, but don't ignore the fact and don't use it as an excuse to be racist too and say, well, we can't allow Malaysian Muslims in the country now.
No, and I hope this is an excuse to say, you know what, we need to let them in. Like this should be
Yeah.
one of the reasons we let them in. It's like I stopped being a Muslim. Should that not be the first person we open the door to?
Well, wait, but now they're an atheist. Is that worse?
Well,
but it's also the case that there are,
yeah.
gay Muslims and like they don't necessarily identify as atheists, or obviously women is the obvious case here kind of thing. And they, I guess, I think I'm really passionate about challenging blasphemy laws because often this is an excuse for persecuting people. But I often say that, like we see people in the West who purport to speak on behalf of other groups. And I don't necessarily appreciate that, right? Because they're not speaking, say a straight person is talking, a straight white male is talking about the LGBTQ community and blah, blah, blah kind of thing, defending them. Okay, I appreciate that kind of thing, but you might not be speaking for all those voices. But on the other hand, there are places where people do not have a voice at all. And I feel that we're morally obligated to try and lend those people a voice. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Should we move on to the Google fiasco?
Sure.
10-page this is from Gizmodo. I love the characterization. It's an exclusive. Here's the full 10-page anti-diversity screed circulating internally at Google. And, of course, it's missing all the interesting graphics that accompanied it, which supported this guy's, or I shouldn't say it's a guy, but this person's conclusions. And this person makes excellent points. That, we have this idea that, here's one here, differences in distributions of traits between men and women may in part explain why we don't have 50% representation of women in tech and leadership. Well, also the fact that over 80% of the pool that you can draw from is men. So that kind of definitely skews your statistics quite a bit. There's a lot of stuff that is very controversial, not so much in evolutionary psychology, but outside of it. That, I keep coming back to this concept that being equal does not mean same. And there's a lot of overlap in the bell curves, but there's a lot of difference as well, depending on what you're talking about. Some things there's not much difference. There's very little difference in IQ between men and women, but the shapes of the curves are very different. So you'll find, for instance, more men at the higher IQ level than women, but you also find more idiot men at the lower end than women. So it evens out.
Like a flatter curve.
It is a broader curve, and it's very different between men and women. We don't know why. It's just the way it is. But this idea that everything has to have 50-50 representation, and then we're just talking about gender here. We're not even getting into the racial diversity aspects of things, or gender. Well, we're just sticking with male, female gender right at this moment, and it's not. You can't. There's no reason to expect that any particular position should be 50-50. There's just not. There's every reason to think it wouldn't be. It doesn't mean that you preclude genders from certain skills sets or certain positions, but you can't just expect and force a 50-50. I mean, right now I think Google is at something like 60% in their information technology. Are men. That's actually doing better than what you would expect from the pool that you could draw from.
Yeah.
Which could be bad, because you might be drawing from people that don't necessarily have the correct skill set.
As long as they can prove that they're not choosing a woman with less skills over a man with more skills.
Well, but that's the whole idea behind some programs where you do choose on that basis. And technically that would be illegal, but
yeah,
it's conflicting. It's conflicting directives. You have the law, which says you can't discriminate on the basis of gender. And then you have these programs which do, which are government sponsored, that kind of thing. So it's kind of talking both sides of the mouth. Like Paul, you've been in the tech. I've
been a developer my whole career. So absolutely, and it's interesting. When I started, this was never brought up because there simply weren't the candidates. Especially in the tech bubble in the 90s. I was living in San Francisco at the time, and it was literally hire anyone who can write any line of code anywhere. It didn't it didn't matter. Wow.
Yeah.
You didn't care about gender. There was no. It was just like, let's usurp every possible position, and the bubble burst, and then the jobs got tighter. And obviously now, this is where I'm torn on this. I have worked with some amazing female developers who were just amazing, but I never hired them because it was just such a non-factor. You write in the tech sector, you're as good as your code, and that's seems to be what you care about. I totally get though is I've worked in places where just the culture was bad though. I mean, the women didn't. Sure. The culture was bad towards women, and I get that. So that bothers me still. To this day, it's kind of looking back as oh man, the culture was so unwelcoming.
Yeah, you'll find that with cooks here. Whereas a woman engineer will be coveted, a woman cook will be basically run out of the business.
But the whole Google, I mean, there is certainly there's a pendulum on these things, and certainly the pendulum is, even though it may not be legal, it would not surprise me if instead of its tie goes to the runner, if it's a man versus woman, if they're equal skill set, let's hire the woman or the visible minority, whatever flavor that is. It wouldn't surprise me if the definition of tie is getting broader.
Yeah.
Where they're within 10% of the skill set.
It's good enough.
It's good enough because obviously, we looked at those other stories where people from the outside are looking at companies like Apple and Google and because they're so giant and public, there's got to be stock pressure. When it comes down to it. But in a way, social pressure is how it works. But I read the screed of this. I read the thing of this guy, and I empathize. I really empathize with him because he can't say what he wants to. He works in a place where he has to bite his tongue because he doesn't agree with the philosophy of the management. But that's also true everywhere I've worked.
Yeah.
Every company I've worked does stuff that I don't agree with.
Yeah, you don't have to agree with it. Yeah.
And so in a way, this guy, if he's working at Google, he could potentially get a job somewhere else. I mean, I'm torn on this. I'm torn on this one. It would be nice if he voted with his skills and said, you know what, you guys are a closed system and you're not fostering open dialogue, so I will take my skills elsewhere. It would be nice if society was that open that we could all vote with our skills and vote with our wallets.
Did you know about that guy is it Ubisoft that does Mass Effect?
Yep.
The game. Yeah, there was a guy there who basically, if you're white, you're pretty much not going to work there. I'm trying to remember who it was who said that. Anyway, but it was such a that seems to me to be the ideal definition of toxic. I mean, I hate using that word because that's the language of the loons. Along with problematic. Oh my God, I hate that. That's a beautiful word, and it's so abused in social justice.
Well, we need to reclaim some words.
I know, but I can't say it. Even if I'm using it properly, I can no longer say it without a nauseating feeling in my stomach.
I hear you.
Yeah, that these words need to be taken back, and God damn it, everything's toxic, right? Everything is a patriarchy, as if there's some meeting place that all of us cracker dudes get together to, hey, who can we oppress? We regale each other with oppression stories over copious amounts of beer. And what do us white dudes eat?
Babies.
Yeah,
chicken wings.
Yeah, chicken wings. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. It's just this bizarre. It's like when Shanti Binks was talking about the patriarchy. I mean, like she uses the word as if it's an actual thing, an object, like a department,
as opposed to a concept,
as opposed to a lens to look through things. I don't think it's that good anyway.
Well, it can be if you look.
Well, if you look at the Catholic Church, or if you look at most of the fundamental religions, like Dominionists, that's definitely a patriarchy. Okay, you can point to that religion and say the man is the head of the household. That's it. You do everything that the man says. And
and similarly, you can frame things in the language of capitalism or any other theoretical. It's a theoretical concept, and if you're only looking at the world through that one lens, you're going to have a very distorted view of the world.
That's like a theory that explains everything, explains nothing, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and but anyway, there's a lot of stuff that I agree with in this. I'll put quotation, scare quotes around it. Screed. Interesting framing, because the author is not rooting for this guy.
No.
But this is one of the things he gets a lot of things right. That there is this public shaming that goes on, and when you do it as a member of an institution like Google, your job is actually in peril, because you're not conforming to these standards of diversity that are being set up. But when shoehorning diversity in, you can't do it and expect good results. It's one thing if a company is not hiring women just because they're not hiring. That's a different situation. But when you're trying to force it to become 50-50, when you don't have that pool to draw from being 50-50, you're going to expect problems. And also these programs which do bring in, these affirmative action type programs, I know from speaking with various people that breeds a form of contempt and resentment.
Yeah. It should be more. It should be representative of the pool of people available. If it's 30% women, it should be 30% women, not 50%.
And alternatively, we would see a disproportionate number of women applying for jobs in other fields as well.
Absolutely, yes. But nobody complains about that.
Mm-hmm. Nursing.
Actually, I know guys that complain about that. It must mean, since there's more women applying for it, that men aren't welcome. Men don't really want to be kindergarten teachers. They would rather be a college teacher.
Well, they'd be in high school, and I actually saw someone make the claim that there's a wage gap in school teachers, men versus women, and there's an obvious reason for it. Women tend to go into teach at the lower grades, which require less education, and men to teach at the high school level, which often requires them to have even a master's degree in
and even college teachers, they have to have bachelor's, master's, etc. Whereas women, if they have kids and they're having kids, they're not going to have that education. They're going to have the kindergarten teacher level. But if they're coming in with a master's, then but how many women have a master's compared to men as teachers? Again, there's your pool.
If I'm not mistaken, you have to do a BA in some other field, and then you go on to do your MA, your MEd, right? Because I think that people that had just gotten away with a bachelor's degree in education were not rising to the task, so they adhered stricter standards to it.
I'm confused because when I lived in California, Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor.
Yeah.
But he was also, but I also saw a movie where there was also a movie where he taught kindergarten. So I'm confused.
Oh, kindergarten cop, yeah.
Here we go, alienating me again.
You don't need a master's for kindergarten, I don't think.
I think in
that's
general,
the point. Apparently, you can have a cop off the street.
It's not a master's; it's a master's. It's a baby BSc with you will go pump you up with the masters.
You're probably going to have a pool of 90 women who want to apply for that job versus, 10 men. Of course, you're going to get more women kindergarten. I don't know if I've ever seen a male kindergarten teacher in my life.
Well, if you walked in and your son or daughter were going to be taught by a man in kindergarten, I've actually, because there was one at the school my kids went to, and I heard some of the moms, they didn't like that their kid was going to get taught by a male.
Oh, really? Okay, there you go. That's to the point.
Oh, they're probably thinking
pedophile. There is sexism.
Well, no, they are. Like, there's always that in their head. Well, why did a man choose to be hanging around little kids all day? Like, it was
maybe he just didn't have education yet. God.
Well, I think the guy legitimately liked hanging around with kids. It was, there's probably some reverse bias there that he had to overcome.
Yeah. Well,
there's no such thing as reverse bias.
It's just bias.
There's a bias.
Yeah.
It happens
those
both ways.
Women who hesitate to have a male kindergarten teacher are pigs. I'm sorry.
Well, they're sexist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sexist pigs.
And Schweinhund.
Now, if you had a priest caller, it'd be a different story.
There are certain, like, when I did my master's degree, I had to look at feminist literature and all that kind of stuff. And there are professions that women want to go into because they're planning to have a family, right?
Yeah.
And if you go into teaching, I don't know, primary education, like meaning grade K to 12 kind of thing, right? You maybe get your summers off to regroup and all that kind of stuff, right? And it's if you get your, I don't know what the equivalent is, tenure. I know a lot of teachers are exploited because they get these year-to-year contracts kind of thing. But if you get on permanently, then you get all the benefits associated with that. And if you're planning your lifestyle and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to plan your life because you're planning on having children or whatever, and say you decide to go into dermatology as a doctor, as opposed to being a surgeon on call 24 hours in emergency or something like that, right? Like this is a lifestyle choice, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, some feminists would disagree with you that there's nothing
wrong
with that.
Well, I know. Of course they would. Of course they would.
It's amazing the human cry when, you're free to do anything you want, right?
Well, if you're not supporting the choice of women to pursue their own career paths according to their own lifestyle, then how true a feminist are you? Right?
Not very.
Yeah, you're not standing up for all women. You're just standing up for the ones who you think are philosophically on the same page as you.
Well, they
and you're being
want to be
fascist.
authoritarian and tell them what they should do. And
exactly.
That's the kind of leftist nonsense that I
and I totally identify on the left. Like, I don't want to throw the left under the bus.
That's why I said that's the kind of leftism.
Yeah,
And I don't. Yeah. But I know too many people
who don't take the nuance into account.
Yeah.
It's all like a hardcore choice between, you're either this type of, feminist or you're, or not, right? It's a binary as opposed to the nuanced.
And there's so much of that now, that binary thinking, that there's no nuance anymore. Nuance is dead. I keep saying it.
Yeah.
And it's all binary, and it's especially the case. This is exactly how Donald Trump got elected. This binary thinking. Oh, you're voting for him because he's a racist, bigot, and sexist. And it's like, oh God, you just don't get it, do you? They're voting for him in spite of that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's, for the most part, I'm sure there are sexist bigots who voted for Donald Trump. Absolutely.
Undoubtedly.
That's like,
but there are also people that weren't.
20%.
And there are people on the left on the far left who just didn't want to vote for Hillary.
Most of them.
Yeah.
especially the people that protested violently after the election results. God, bunch of idiots.
The ones that didn't vote?
Yes, how stupid can you be? Remember, we talked about that.
It's like, what did you expect?
I totally remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, 120 something people were arrested in violent protests, and 87 of them did not vote.
Yeah.
How stupid are you? If
That's
you
called
don't
hypocrite.
vote, and then, you can't make that stuff up, right? it's just it's true, right?
Yeah.
I tell you. We got one last story. This Australian cafe that is adding 18% to their
product.
To their prices in order to bring attention to the wage gap. Yeah.
Well, they are donating to women's charity, but do you think men are going to go in there and you don't become the enemy to make a point?
Because apparently it's once a month and it's voluntary. Okay. But still, I mean, if you opt out,
that makes it legal. That makes it legal. The voluntary.
I guess so. Yeah, like a happy hour or something like that, I suppose, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but if you're a dude on a date, what better place you like?
What is this sly one?
Like you go in.
You're
there,
so woke.
Look, I'm going to donate to charity.
Yeah.
And Twyla said here, look how they're drawing attention. They're not like this. Just makes total sense to me from a marketing perspective. Like, who's ever heard of this coffee shop? Nobody.
Yep.
Until now.
But now everyone knows this coffee shop. Everyone in town is going there once a month to, or on the off days. In fact, they even said in the article how much traffic boost they've got from this.
Yeah.
Who is it though? It's women. They do.
It doesn't matter. But if you own the coffee shop, what do you care?
Yeah, that's your audience. That's you're drawing the women in.
Yeah, and even if you lose people, which you're going to inevitably do, you're going to attract that much more to compensate, right? Yeah, because it's a PR stunt.
And I love that it's free market. This is what I was talking about before. I love that this is a free market of ideas, so people will vote. So people who think this is idiotic, who used to go to the shop, will not come back. And they can figure out, it's the free market of ideas and the free market of where you buy coffee. Unlike your job where you're unfree to leave, you can get coffee anywhere. So it'll be, do we honestly think that in 3 months they'll still be doing this? No.
I don't know. I didn't realize it was just. I didn't know it was 1 day.
Well, it's not even a loss leader. It's a profit maker. So why wouldn't they continue this? Even if people opt out, there's going to be people that still want to pay the extra 18%. So you'd be a fool to abandon that campaign.
Well, there's
your own social point with people.
Yeah.
Even and negative publicity is just as good as positive publicity.
Yeah. But it's built on a myth. That's what really
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're talking about persuasion.
The shop owner and stuff. He looks pretty happy.
It's free advertising, that's for sure. Oh yeah, of course he looks happy. Yeah. Absolutely.
International media.
People will be ordering from Singapore or something.
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of advertising, is what it is.
Yeah, for free.
For a little tiny cafe. Yep. Just like how Trump got elected.
Yeah. It's smart.
If the press had just ignored him, he wouldn't have even had a fucking chance in hell.
Yeah. It would have been, look at that idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the guy hasn't paid for anything in his life, really. I mean, I love that he went on vacation. It's supposed to be a working vacation.
17
Tweeting
days.
on the golf course is not a working vacation.
And what? He tweeted today. Oh, my God.
Oh, what did he tweet?
Oh, he's attacking again.
Well, he's always doing that.
Yeah, that massively. And hypocritically, of course, picking on a vet, calling him out as a vet who apparently bragged a little too much about things he didn't actually do, as opposed to Trump, who was never went to war because of bone spurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, bone spurs. I'll remember that.
Yeah.
I'll remember that one. Don't you get bone spurs like in your heel and stuff like that? And it's incredibly painful. How can you golf?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't even remember what foot he had them in. So obviously.
And would not that sort of be the prevent? I don't know. I have no problems with my feet, but would not just wearing better footwear, which clearly Trump could afford, alleviate that problem?
No, it's very.
I think
painful.
They have to get
any pressure
surgically removed.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay.
That's usually how they do it, and it's a nasty surgery. So.
Huh. I had no idea.
So I doubt he ever had them.
Yeah. It's just his, he had the money to keep himself out of the draft.
Yeah, and he's bad-mouthing a vet again.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the first time he's done that. I mean,
no.
John
McCain.
Now that McCain has a brain tumor, I bet you he's thinking, he's going to lose to cancer because he's such a loser. I wouldn't surprise me. Right?
That is so dark, but yeah. Oh God, we're really going to the dark side today. Yeah.
Well, that's what he says.
He says,
that's what we do.
Like did you ever think during during the times of GW that it could get any worse?
Worse.
Yeah, really.
And then Trump comes along, and I'm not even going to say it anymore because I have no idea the depths to which
go back even
the
further
electorate will put some bozo in the White House. Who next?
I was going to say, go back even further to Reagan. They put a fucking actor in the White House.
Yeah.
Dig up Ted Bundy.
And look at the debt, the mountain of debt he put them in.
Well,
they still talk.
He's a 4-time bankruptcy applicant, so.
Are you talking about
corporate?
Trump
Trump, yeah, corporate.
Okay.
Reagan put them into astronomical debt with his little trickle down and pull back the taxes.
By comparison, Reagan looks like a freaking saint to Trump.
So far,
yeah,
so far,
and he had Alzheimer's.
So far, but not economically, he was worse so far.
Okay,
but at least he was a bit presidential.
That's true.
To tie this in with the video
Being
I posted
an actor
this morning,
and all.
just to be very self-centered.
Sorry, Paul?
Oh,
yeah.
Totally, yeah.
I was going to say, to tie this into a video I posted this morning. So Ken Ham last week, if you guys know who Ken Ham is, built the Ark Encounter, Creation Museum, all that kind of crap. So he hired a Trump impersonator to do an ad for the Ark Encounter as Donald Trump. So they have this ad, and I posted it on my channel. You can go check it out. Some actor pretending to be Donald Trump praising the Ark. So this is where, so there's still people, there's still an entire demographic down there who think, this is what blew my mind, is that you think Trump is going to help your cause?
33%.
Giant. I know, but there's
third.
It's obvious to us, but there's still a group down there that are hitching their wagon to his coattails.
But it's only his base.
33%. A third of the people down there.
Only his base, I know, but the fact that they exist.
Yeah,
I don't even care.
I agreed. Yeah,
33%
33% is way too much. Is 33% too much? Yeah,
and look at who. That's a large amount of people that like Ken Ham and like Trump and like the Republicans and what they do.
Well, and who don't care one way or the other about any given tweet or any given science report or any given all those little bullets of truth, or truth is a bad word even. All those facts. I can't find a word that hasn't been corrupted already.
Yeah.
There's no issue on which they can be shown to be wrong that would in any way impact their belief in the goodness of the cause. So that's,
Trump panders to right wing and Christians.
It's hard to win that. It's hard to win when there's literally nothing that you could say. You could ask them. Well, what if this so-called Christian's wife used to be in porn? Fine, apparently.
Yes.
But if it was a Democrat, oh my God!
I know.
But
so
it's okay for a Republican.
There's just we have to win other ways.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he's going to get beyond his base. Well, I don't think he got his beyond the base last time. It's just that the base came out to vote and the rest of the people didn't.
Yeah.
Which is really strange. I mean, that's why Hillary.
And then they were mad
Hillary
when
lost.
he won. It's like, you guys, what did you expect?
Yeah, you don't get to get mad after not voting. That's just.
Did you think it'd be better if the libertarian won or the,
Yeah.
Actually, I
green
do.
lady?
Actually, I totally
that
do.
anti-science
Yeah, probably.
green lady?
Yeah. Rand Paul? Rand Paul? Or
Were they expecting one of those people
not
to
him.
win?
No, I'm sorry. What's...
It was Dan.
They were libertarian.
What's Aleppo Johnson?
Huh?
Dan.
Yeah.
What's Aleppo
no.
Johnson?
Mr. Clueless about the
libertarian
world.
guy that ran for the Republican Party. What the heck's his name? Rand Paul?
Maybe.
Rand Paul was a guy, yeah.
Okay,
He's a guy.
yeah.
I don't know if
And
that's
his
who you're
father was
talking about.
Well, because I always get there's two guys.
Paul
I was
Ryan as well. I don't know if that's who you're thinking of.
Yeah, I get them mixed up. The libertarian.
The libertarian
Paul
who
Ryan
ran in this
or-
last election was Dan. What's Aleppo Johnson?
Yeah, for the Libertarian Party,
Okay, but I'm talking about the preliminaries.
right? Who got bonked out?
I don't remember
Yeah.
because it was just
Which
it was
was
a
the
big clown
Libertarian
car.
Republican?
Yeah, I want to say Rand Paul, but I might be getting it wrong. And frankly, I think I'm not a
Christine?
libertarian. No. Shit. And Paul I'm sorry. His father was also in politics too, and was really well respected as a libertarian because he was quite honest to his principles and that kind of thing, right? And I think that he would have been like libertarians. I'm not a libertarian, but I do agree with their non-interventionist attitude, and they're not going to get us engaged in wars. They're probably going to try and pull out of that. They're not going to encroach on women's right to abortion or to they're not going to bar legalization of marijuana and stuff. So, like, frankly, I think a libertarian would have been
Would have
really
been
interesting.
better. However, then Trump, especially right now, however, economically it would have been a disaster. You would have had healthcare toast too.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't have had
That's true. Yeah.
So you would have had at least someone a little less asinine about the world, hopefully. But to not know about Aleppo, I don't know.
Yeah, your foreign policy was a little.
That's not the guy I'm talking about.
Wikipedia tells me that you're right about Rand Paul. His dad was a libertarian,
Thank you.
and he
Yeah,
ran
yeah.
as
So him as a Republican winning would have been better than Trump.
Who's the Speaker of the House? Because that's the name I always get mixed up with.
Paul
That's,
Ryan.
that's Paul Ryan. Yeah.
Paul Ryan, Rand Paul, Paul Ryan. Here we go again with the mimetic, infestation of the brain and mixing up names, right? Yeah.
Oh well. Anyway.
Him against Bernie Sanders would have been freaking awesome.
Oh, wow, much better.
Yeah.
Much better, I'll say.
But
he would
have been easy to vilify too. So I don't know if he would have
Yeah,
it.
his Achilles heel
He would have
is
been
the socialist
vilified.
label.
Yeah. They would have killed him as a socialist. They would have those emails they would have released about him. Oh my.
Dead than red.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a lot of people think that they're Republicans or conservatives, but when it actually comes to issues, they tend to agree with the more socialist.
Not on healthcare.
I don't know about
Not on women's reproductive rights.
the general population I'm talking about. Right?
Oh.
Well, the humans,
Yeah.
the
of course.
non-politicians.
Yeah, exactly.
Bernie had a better chance to beat Trump than Hillary did. I mean, that's just
Absolutely.
math. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
I think
think he
he
would have
would've
won,
won
but he had a better chance.
I
And
think he would've.
going back to the more voting, it's not like more people voting in Philadelphia and some of the other places would have helped. All right, Philadelphia would have helped, but there's different. I mean, just the way we have the same problem in Canada when you do geographically, when you do representation by geography instead of by pure votes. That's just the nature of the way that system's going to work, and I cannot see anyone being strong enough to change it because whoever gets in was a beneficiary of the system.
Exactly. I was thinking about that in the shower the other day. It was like
The other thing.
That was exactly the same
though,
conclusion I came to, was that the people that get into power are not going to change it because that is the mode in which they got elected and they want to use it again. And so it's easy for the opposition to say we're going to change it, but they change it to them very quickly when they actually win through that mechanism. And it's
But the thing about Bernie, if they made all the Hillary voters hate him the way they made Bernie voters hate Hillary, I don't know. They would have found some way to vilify Hillary
Hillary had.
They would have
18
vilified
years.
Bernie. They would have said,
No,
"Oh,
but-
Bernie did this to Hillary," and all the damn Hillary voters would have sat on their butts.
But it would have been new hate. Like there's nothing like old hate. Hillary had. I lived in the States. Hillary had old hate. You know that.
And I
But
think
they
the
would have
Democratic
made-
Party in general, because they made promises about, getting people out of poverty and blah, blah, blah kind of thing that they obviously didn't fulfill. So there's a lot of, I think, built up resentment given the economic, situation that the U.S. is in, where people who would have typically voted Democratic just wanted any kind of change because they weren't getting anything to help.
They were getting, but it would have been all the Hillary voters hating on Bernie. Like, the Democratic Party was so shattered.
Yeah,
Between
that's
those
true.
two people, they would have sat on their thumbs one way or the other. All the feminists would have been like, "Oh, Bernie, like, he did this to Hillary, so I'm not voting for him."
Feminists love Bernie. Feminists love Bernie more than Hillary.
Really?
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't know. There were
depends
those,
on the type
there
of
were those
feminism.
pantsuit groups and stuff that just loved her.
Millennial women loved Bernie.
Yeah, but how many of them compared to Pantsuit Nation?
But they can come out and vote. Like, this is the thing, is they can actually, and they lived in places where their parents were voting red. That's what you need to care about. You don't need to care about New York and LA. It's those. It's the
I'd
red
like to
states.
see. I'd like to see those numbers of who would have voted for her. Yeah.
Look them up, because they are like there are tons of studies.
Yeah.
Definitely look them up.
People who voted for Obama in the past who voted for Trump.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right.
I would like.
Problems yet?
I would have loved to see Bernie win. I tell you, I would have.
Me too. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think that's the majority opinion of most Canadians.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah. Even conservatives.
Certainly, they've gone from a very articulate statesman to a complete yutz.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, what can you say, right? A compulsive liar. I don't even know what his policies are. I mean, what has he done? He's accomplished nothing in office.
Do it for me. Do it so that I could rule like Putin. He wants to be loved. He wants to be worshipped. And he wants to make a ton of money. He wants to change USA into an oligarchy. He wants the billionaires to run the country.
They already do.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
I don't think he wants any of that. I don't think he wants to work. I think he just.
Yeah.
Well, he'll let the oligarchs
I think it was
do all
a
the
joke.
work, but he wants to be worshipped. He wants.
He wants to be
loved.
worshipped, but he doesn't want to actually change it. Like anything that's an effort, I don't think he has any interest in.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. No kidding.
Well, he wants to be King
How come
Trump.
it's so
He wants
hard?
to
Why don't you just do what I
have
say?
his way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I might switch,
It's called the Constitution.
may I switch gears briefly, because we have a question from our listener BJ Price,
Yeah.
and he asks, "I'm not sure how Ham can get away with using a character of the Trump to make money. Isn't Trump pretty much a brand name?" And that's a very interesting point. Has Trump sanctioned this?
Well, you
Probably.
can't use his likeness
yeah.
for anything because it doesn't
Well, yeah,
matter
but do you think Trump's
would
going to
have
do
had
this for
to.
free?
it's trademarked?
Trump's
No,
not
but-
going to do this for free.
When you become president, you are open to, like, they actually have specific laws about that. So Saturday Night Live can do whatever they want. Like, it's parody.
Yeah, but that's satire as opposed to
No,
like
but
an
this
endorsement.
ad, but this ad was like very much. If you see it, it's done Alec Baldwin style. Like, you're not like, if they tried to pretend it's a weird thing, but like it's clearly an impersonator. Like, it's clearly not him. They didn't
So it's
splice
like
together
the movie Dave.
a little bit. I mean, they didn't splice together Trump sound bites to make it sound like he was endorsing the ARC when he didn't really. It's clearly an impersonator, right? Like, but in the States specifically, the president is fair game for satire and at a level of tolerance that is higher than an average citizen. But it's not a bad question, like how far that line can go. But I've definitely, when I lived down there, you saw Obama impersonators on crappy used car TV ads.
Yeah.
It's a thing. I don't know why it's a thing, but it's a thing.
President's
if
Day
he's
is the worst day
popular-
for commercials. Like, they're just so bad. It's always Abe Lincoln or something. I just.
Well, just keep
Just
in mind, Trump
embarrassing.
is popular in Ham's demographic. So.
Yeah.
That's true.
I also Ken Ham. If you've been following the last couple of months for him, he does not have the best legal team. I don't know if you were covering that he sold his ARC to himself for $10.
Yeah, I heard about
that. And then that was going to
yeah.
cost him $18 million, so he sold it back. Like he needs a better legal team. Where like it wouldn't.
He's got
surprise
Kent
me.
Hovind's legal team.
Oh. Well.
Tax
Kent is a
tax
whole
law
story.
team.
We will not. Yes, I will not get into Kent today because that's too much.
Yeah.
Take me for a beer if you want my screed on him.
Yeah, he was great. T-Rex was a herbivore. Do you know?
Oh well.
He was debating Massimo Pigliucci, and he actually said that. He's just like, what? And Pigliucci, of course, was completely at a loss for words. Just
Yeah, but that's if you lived. Like I was taught that my whole life. That's not even funny. No, I was totally taught that all. Like humans and like lions were herbivores. Like everything ate plants until the Garden of Eden was done. Like literally, they justify why.
So for like a day.
Well, no, because they that was like 6 months in the garden. So because they have those two competing Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, which completely contradict each other in all kinds of ways, and were written centuries apart, doesn't matter. They had most of them kind of feel like they were in the Garden of Eden for like 6 months to several years. Like that the events that the snake talking to her didn't happen on day 6 or day 7. Day 6. That there's allowances in the Bible that the creation all happened in 6 days, but there was a little bit of idyllic time. For example, it would be tough to name all of the animals in one afternoon.
Or 100 years.
It's tough to fit anything on all that on the ark. I mean, so you probably could name them in one day. I mean, if all the animals
Well, yeah, if you
on
could
the
fit
ark.
them on the ark, you could name them in
Yeah.
like 6 hours.
Well, but even the creationists, they go down as low as some of them go down as 1,800 different kinds that were on there. But even 1,800 kinds means you're naming people. You're naming animals every few seconds. Like this is the math doesn't work. So.
Well, and how long did it take to have Cain and Abel? And who did they marry? And
And why did they need a mark on his forehead? Because didn't it? Everybody
all
know
his
who he was.
Apparently, all his brothers and sisters had no idea who he was from the land of Nod down the road.
Yeah, where did these people come from?
The stuff I used to believe really makes me shake my head.
Well, that's the thing. You were indoctrinated into it. There's we can laugh at it in postscript.
But there's still adults that believe that stuff.
Yeah, there was me a few years ago. So.
Well, that's good. You escaped it. So there you
Thanks.
go. That's better than I may have done. I mean, I have no idea.
It's better. Yeah,
the advantage I have in what I do is that I still remember what it was like to. I still remember what it was like to be them. So I can actually speak to them in a way that I can. Like, would I have listened? Whenever I have a video, would I have listened to this on the other side? And chances are probably not, but at least there's a chance, right? Like I'm able to. I don't swear ever on my channel, for example, when I do in real life all the time, just because I know if they hear one of those words, well, then nothing after that goes into their head. Yeah. So it's strategic in a way.
But you have a good co-host who, I can't remember her name, but
Morgan, I let all my.
Had a pretty good spew of
I let all my guests on, for example, and it's like, I'm not going to tell Aaron Ron not to swear.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So guests can do what they want. And I swear vicariously through my guests.
Yeah, I don't bother debating. I don't bother debating or engaging believers because I have no idea how to talk to them. I have no clue.
It is.
I just don't.
Yeah, to have been, you can't imagine what it's like to have been brain. At least I was, but I think it's tough for me to. Like people ask me why don't I attack Islam? Well, I don't know. Like I wasn't Muslim, right? So, but I was a Christian, and I know what it was like for them. So I understand that the bigger problem might be Islam, although all problems are problems. I think we're all, this is not called, I don't believe in callings or destinies or whatever, but I kind of feel like we each should pick our fight and do the most positive we can.
Yeah, but Islam stems from the Abrahamic faiths, and so there's so much commonality between.
Well, certainly when I do my creation debunking, I get comments from Muslims.
Yeah.
I definitely get comments from Muslims when it comes down to anything on the Pentateuch.
And the apologist strategies are essentially the same.
Yeah.
In fact, I think they've learned them from institutes like the Creation, whatever the hell it is, right? Creation Institute or whatever. Oh, yeah. They cross-pollinate essentially.
Yeah, and Islamic people in Canada will take their children to Christian schools because at least it's a religion.
I don't know. There's a lot of Muslim kids in public schools too.
Yeah, there are, but the ones that are fundy-ish, they will take their kids to Christian school over a public school. Well,
and I shouldn't say the only option, but it's the Catholic system or the public system here, right? And I've definitely heard I have somebody who I know who's like a Jack Mormon, and they sent their kids to a religious school just because, even though they weren't necessarily in agreement with Catholic doctrine kind of thing, it's like any religion is better than none.
Better than none. That's exactly what the Muslim family said.
Yeah. So. Yeah. But no doubt they'll be confronted on their beliefs, in a Catholic environment. So that's
I don't know.
Not a bad thing,
I don't know. They'll just go to the Christian classes and it'll just be a different version of theirs, or what?
Well, there's got to be some cognitive dissonance raised there, because once you understand that there's belief systems outside of your own, then you have to confront some level of cognitive dissonance or ignore it, I suppose. Yeah. But some people are going to confront it.
Or some might say it's similar enough. Other kids might go, what?
Probably.
It's funny how we can compartmentalize, though, because I recently did an expose on, Answers in Genesis recently attacked the Flat Earth community, which was just such gold for me, because I'm like, look at the arguments you guys are using against the Flat Earth. I literally went through their video and just put young Earth. I took whatever they said flat, I just took young out, and everything still made sense.
Nice.
They're able to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and say it anymore.
Compartmentalize.
But yeah, thank you. Our human ability to do that is fascinating.
Not ability. It's part of our.
It's a protective mechanism.
It's an evolutionary, trait.
And they're taught to look at atheists as the ultimate evil, so they're among friends with the Christians. Even
though they cut the head off of the infidel, but
but not everybody. I don't know.
Not everybody.
I completely respect, Paul, where you're coming from, and Twyla too, because you actually had to escape a religion. And on the other hand, I didn't. And so I was completely free to, spew my atheistic stuff when I was a child. And I found that other children and, say teens and stuff like that were like, yeah, you know what? And they would question it, because I simply wasn't taught that. I had no idea that atheism was a bad thing, right? So
I heard it. I sat there in Bible study. I sat there in Bible camp. I didn't go to church, but I heard enough of it just from those two places that I kept my fucking mouth shut.
Yeah, see, to me in my realm, atheism was kind of the norm. It was a default almost, right?
I knew if I outed myself, I would be viewed, and I was already mistreated enough just not being part of their church to be actually out as an atheist too.
Yeah.
I think I would have got killed. I don't know. I got hurt enough being different enough as I was, that if I came out as an atheist too, I don't know. I got beat up every day as enough. I got spit on. I got my head slammed into and people didn't even know I was an atheist. Can you imagine if they knew I was an atheist on top of that? I don't even want to know.
Yeah. But in terms of initiating a conversation, if you go into it naive, like I did as a naive atheist, just assuming everybody else kind of, if they believed, they kind of took it metaphorically or whatever. And so I would, talk to my peers as a child kind of thing. And sometimes they would say,
Whoops, sorry guys. I'm watching CNN. They apparently have fired the engineer that wrote that.
Oh wow, okay.
script.
Huh. Just exactly proving that guy's point.
Yeah, and not only that, but here's how CNN characterizes it. This is hilarious. Google executives have responded to a 3,300-word manifesto written by one of its male engineers that argues, get this, women aren't suited for tech jobs for biological reasons.
That's not what he said.
He said no such thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. Okay, CNN,
Wow.
this time I have to say you are fake news.
What
Again.
the hell?
That's just bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's CNN for you. There you go. Ugh. Makes me ill. You can't. You see,
Now
the
that
moment
guy's not,
you raise
how's
your.
that guy?
Yeah, well, he'll get another job.
I hope
There's going to
so.
be people that are going to say, "Yeah, that's exactly the problem." People
Okay, good.
people who are in the industry know what the pool is, so that they can draw from, and they can see that, yeah, this is, pretty good reasons for why there aren't that as many women as men, and it's not sexism that's keeping the tech degrees or the computer science degrees and information technology degrees at over 80% male. If women wanted to go to them, they'll go into them.
Well, it's like science. So you're kind of, even from it, and again, because I grew up in Lacombe school system, as a woman, you don't do science. That's like a math and man thing. So as a woman, when you're going through and choosing your career from into high school as a woman, you're probably not going to choose those classes that will enable you to go on to get those jobs. You're going to choose like home ec and English, and
I took
I
home
don't
ec
know.
in high school.
Yeah, but as a woman growing up in these environments that I grew up in, it's not cool to go to shop class, man. It's not cool to go to the math, upper math. It's not cool to go to physics. It's not cool. So you're still going to find it's the men that are going to go on to take that education more than women for a long time yet.
That might be you're in the rural areas, so that might very well be true because rural areas are more conservative and more strongly attached to sex roles. I would not say that of a
Red
city.
Deer is millions of people. There's
what?
millions of people. Red Deer,
Red
the
Deer
central Alberta area,
has
there's
how many
millions of
people?
No, but Red Deer, the greater Red Deer area.
Okay.
Referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
There
How many
are
millions?
millions of people. And these millions
There
of
are?
people keep their girls thinking about getting married after high school.
Yeah,
So-
that's why I say in the rural areres would be very different. But
Yeah, because my kids in Calgary, my sons took cooking and my daughter took woodworking and cooking, and there was roughly 50-50 splits in both of those classes. So
Are they mandatory? They might be mandatory.
no, these were optional. Like these were
Okay.
later.
Yeah, they're options.
And the gender
Wish I had
split
shop.
was relatively even. In
Yeah,
both.
Calgary's far more progressive though than if you come to like Lacombe.
So I suspect Randy took home ec mainly to meet girls, and that's not true anymore.
yeah, better not be. I mean, I wouldn't be married very long.
Red Deer at least. Like I went to school in Lacombe. I went to high school in Lacombe. In Red Deer at least they don't call it home ec anymore. They do call it cooking. So,
Cooking? Or that would be like something like
food studies.
domestic arts or something like that.
Food
Yeah,
studies.
something more secular as opposed
Yeah,
to that.
Or
it's
what do you mean
not- it's
fancy
not home
sounding?
ec.
It'd be like
Ye-
custodial engineering.
as opposed to a
Yeah.
janitor. Yes, yes,
think
that's
they
exactly the example I was thinking. But
I think they actually
language
do.
changes minds.
Yeah.
So
They
fair
call
enough.
it food studies and
Yeah,
stuff
news
now. They don't
speak.
call it home ec.
Language
there's
changes
woodworking.
minds. Well,
Well, we don't call them
Unless you
firemen
see through the
anymore. We call
bullshit.
them firefighters, right? Like there's just some basic shit that language can change our attitudes, toward, right? We don't call them chairmen anymore. We
No,
call
it
them
must be-
chairpersons
must be
or blah, blah,
firepersons.
blah.
Well,
Yeah.
my
Or mail carriers as opposed to mailmen.
I still call them
you know.
firemen.
I don't know.
Some
My daughter, when
firefighters.
she was really little, she's like, blah, 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 firemen. I'm like, no, firefighters, right?
Aw.
It just seems obvious to me that
you are
not all-
part of the. Oh, look at this
I know,
social justice
I'm part of the
warrior.
I know I'm part. No, I'm not part of the regressive
Social
left, but
justice, yeah.
but I might be I have my social justice warrior bent, but I am not a regressive leftist, and there's a distinction there.
Exactly.
Although there's a huge amount of overlap too.
Well, we'll get this too. My son got dumped by a girl who wanted to get married right out of high school.
Wow,
And he didn't. So he got dumped.
Jesus, huh.
Yeah.
That's shocking. Like,
I call that dodged a bullet.
Oh,
Yeah.
so did we.
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
I'm sorry, what kind of girl grows up to believe that you need to get married right out of high school? Like, what kind of upbringing have you had that you wouldn't want to pursue your
Her
own
parents
interests?
are religious.
It's called Listening to Paradise by the Dashboard Lights.
God, I fucking hate that song. Oh,
So do I. I just like, what a bitch. That's all I can think of.
one of the dumbest songs out there. On a par with anything written by what the fuck's his name now? Against the
Meatloaf?
No, that's
you're
Meatloaf.
thinking of Seeger?
Yeah. His lyrics are so fucking stupid.
Hey, don't knock Seeger. He's awesome.
What's a couple
Seger.
of songs that he does that are just so fucking teenager-ish and naive that he seems like a fucking creepy pedo when I can't stand him. Sorry.
Well, the guy who used to listen to Meatloaf every day at noon, and pretty much I got to hear that Dashboard Light song 3 days a week. He's finally going to Cochrane, so I don't have to listen to that anymore. But oh my God, is it ingrained in my brain?
You need satellite radio.
Yeah. Maybe now that he's gone.
They've got a couple of good radio stations in Red Deer.
Well, we have internet at work, so.
Well, that's true too. I got Apple Music and. Anyway, I think we should go to bed.
Yeah. Paul,
It's
you've barely
been
gotten
fun.
a word
Thank you,
in
Paul.
edgewise.
Listen.
I'm the guest here. You guys.
Well, you're supposed to talk more than.
Yeah,
than us.
exactly.
I-
It's supposed to be featuring you. And
You
I've been
heard
like,
me.
Blah, 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 blah.
All my stuff was front loaded. I was gone nuts at the first part, so it's all good.
Well, it's good
All
to
right.
have your perspective on Calgary, you Calgarians.
Yeah. I'm like
Stuck
third generation. So I'm just like, it's a bubble. It's my secular bubble, as another friend refers to it, because
I
we grew
envy
up,
you.
Yeah. And I had no idea. I took it for granted, and I'm incredibly grateful for, being raised in a non-religious household and a secular
Environment.
city. Yeah. Public schools. There was kids of all faiths and beliefs, and I had a very enriched upbringing for which I'm super grateful.
Yeah, pass it on. I'm trying with my sons. Like, when I listened in grade 8 to my teacher say we didn't come from monkeys, so we're not learning this part of the book, it just becomes, you become ignorant because they want to keep you ignorant. And I'm so lucky to go on to college and gotten what education I did, so I wouldn't be confused about why he said that. So, otherwise, to this day, who knows what I would think. Even as a non-religious person, I was confused. Why would scientists be so stupid? I was taught in grade 8 that scientists were so dumb. So,
I of course, this is an unanswered question. I'm just making a speculation here, but I kind of wonder if there's something like biological about non-belief. When I look at my lineage and the non-belief that has been pervasive through my family, like certain members of my family are very clearly and openly atheist, and there might just be some, like maybe we're lacking some gene that, confers survival. So we're, that's
what does
why.
Paul think about that? He escaped finally.
I would only say, so obviously, I believe that there's a genetic advantage, and that to the survival of believing things. Humans evolved, I believe, in a way that, if you believe that something is if something's shaking in the wood, in the trees, you're better off thinking there's something there running away than kind of being, that's probably nothing, right?
Yeah.
I think, I think we typically have evolved. There's a survival benefit to
superstition.
to superstition, right?
Yeah.
Now Now, Chris, I would only say if you're in your family, you may well have some of the skeptical. I don't think it's religion. I think there's a genetic basis for skepticism, though. And I would ask, like, are they equally skeptical about all claims, or is it just that you didn't have the culture of religion, to find you? So, for example, several of my cousins, who I'm hoping are not listening, and the other people won't be listening. So I'm the oldest cousin on both sides, and I've had a bunch of the younger ones, come and confide in me now that I'm out and taking the arrows for the family. Like, they're skeptical about this stuff. They don't necessarily believe it, which makes me feel good. Okay, like there's, that it's not necessarily genetic that we believe. It's very cultural, at least in my situation. But so, Chris, does your extended family, are they equally skeptical at all things, or do they go in for other weird woo?
Well, my great-grandfather tried to build a perpetual motion machine. So there must be this engagement with, I tend to agree that I think skepticism is prior to atheism, in the sense that you can be a skeptic and question everything except your religion, right? So maybe you're right. Like, maybe it's a skeptical gene or lack of gene or something like that. But when I look at my family lineage, I can't help but think that there's something biological there. That maybe I was just like right from the beginning. I just had the family kind of comfort of not having to worry about lying to them about the fact that I didn't believe, right? Because I remember being, about going to elementary school in grade 1, right? And there was a kid there that was very, very religious and going on about hell and all this kind of crap, right? And I'd heard of this in the peripherals because it's not like other people in my extended family weren't Christians and that kind of thing. So I kind of sort of knew, but this was a sincere believer about going to hell. And so I went home and I said to my mom, what what the fuck? What do we believe? And she said to me, well, we're agnostics, and that means show us and then we'll believe. And so I had this like comfort zone that I never had to pretend to my parents that I believed in this bullshit, right? And I don't know if I would have just come to the point where I would have lied to myself and went along with it because my family was also religious, right? If assuming they'd been religious, or if I just would have stifled my non-belief right from the get-go. I suspect I would have stifled my non-belief right from the get-go. I just wasn't kind of programmed to believe, and I just had the supportive environment where that was okay.
Yeah, I stifled it. I knew how to stifle what I thought around home for other reasons, but I also knew to stifle it at school or be outed as that evil person they said we all are. So I didn't ever, like, even though I learned that scientists were stupid, I still was confused as to why scientists could be stupid, and I didn't really believe that they were that stupid. So when I learned that they weren't, I was definitely relieved, but I never actually believed they were that stupid, but I was wondering how they could be. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it's the inquiring mind, I suppose, as opposed to somebody who's going to just accept a claim at face value, right?
Yeah. You
have to interrogate that claim and find out for yourself. And maybe that's I don't know. I'm not going to try to undermine anybody's belief system by saying that they're neglecting the job of doing the work of questioning their own claims, because I don't really give a shit what people believe as long as they just don't encroach it on me or whatever in society or blah, blah, blah kind of thing. But there might be some kind of, I don't know, biological proclivity to need to question and to not be satisfied with easy answers. Yeah, which I guess is the essence of skepticism, right?
Yeah. Where's my grandma? She was a pure Catholic and went to church every Sunday and didn't believe man went to the moon. And I wonder how I'm related to her. And I can't, in my own family, I cannot find the other non-believers. So I don't understand, like, where I came from. My dad, I guess, I don't know if he's religious, though. I guess I should ask him.
You should.
I keep forgetting.
He might just very well have, like, my dad is pretty hardcore atheist, and he's never hidden that kind of thing. But since I've become, again, I've taken atheism for granted. It's just been like, who gives a shit? I'm atheist. It's like I have green eyes. Nobody gives a shit, right? Interesting, maybe, who gives a shit? But now that I've become more openly, well, I should not, publicly atheist, I suppose would be the word, right? I've conversed with my dad, and yeah, there's definitely that lineage there, right? Yeah. Including, his cousin, and I can see through the family, like my great grandparents advised my grandmother not to baptize my dad because the choice was between paying the rent or, paying money to baptize him. Like, duh, pay the fucking rent. Like, so my dad is unbaptized, which is, was of some concern to my grandma. But then I asked her, what do you think of God when I was a kid or whatever? And she's like, she described this scenario. She went to a funeral and the baby was like, oh, it was a baby's funeral. And this baby was, they were going on about how this baby was a sinner and blah, blah, blah. They were born into, and that totally put her off, So maybe she believed in something, but I don't think you could call her a Christian, Yeah. Now, again, she lost, I'm not going to say again, but she lost one of her sons when my uncle was 32, which, was before I was born kind of thing. So I can also understand where you want to find that comfort that you're going to be reunited with your loved ones again. And that might be the one thing that maybe prevents people from atheism is that afterlife comfort. The idea that you're going to be reunited with your loved ones in the end. And I think if there's any kind of, I guess, justification for believing, I think that's probably the most compelling.
So now that my channel's grown, I think the thing I get so I get a lot of messages from people who are in my similar situation. It's the reverse. They the question I get most is, do you still fear hell? Do you still wake up scared of hell? It's less about the reward and more about the fear of so it's carrot stick. But the people in my situation who are reluctant to leave, it's the fear side that, at least in my experience.
Exactly.
I don't
understand. It's the fear of the afterlife. What happens after we die?
But you don't have your body, so how are you going to feel it? Who cares?
No, these are rational people who would even call themselves atheists, but they still wake up at 3 a.m, afraid that it's just something about indoctrination where you've been told you're going to hell. And I had it I was lucky. I only had it for a few months, but there are people who, for years still, wake up in the middle of the night. Yeah, so it's obviously, that's not a good way to have been raised.
Wow, that's child abuse. I'm sorry to say, but
did Randy already go to
your kids now?
I try not to talk about my kids too much on air, but my kids are all believing Christians, and it is a point of stress and contention.
Yeah, because my one son's Christian, and I don't talk about it with him. I respect that and everything, but he wasn't really brought up that way, but he is that way, so I don't question it, and I don't talk about it, and I've let him know he's free to choose. So
the reason I started my channel, and I'm very public about this, is every video I put out is a message to them for when they are comfortable listening.
Yeah.
So they will not
talk reject about it.
Right, and they won't talk to me about it now, but they still live with me half time. So we talk about everything else. Someday I hope. They're aware the channel exists. I'm hoping someday they will talk to me in person, or if I'm not around, that they will, hear what I wish that they would doubt about themselves. But.
And it's up to them. That's fine. I left, and my one brother is very Catholic, so I have very religious people, my own son and my own brother. So it's not something. It's them. It's not something you can force or make them change, or it's just they'll come to you if they want.
Yes, hopefully they will.
Yeah, I always keep hoping my one, but he was never scientifically inclined, I guess you could say. He always, I don't know if he'll ever listen to this, which I doubt, but he was always more for the easy answers. It was just easier for him.
My daughter won her school's science award last year,
So
which
there's hope.
drives me crazy. It's like, oh wait, you believe what? And you won your science award? But anyway, I gotta
Just wait.
I gotta think that one or the other is gonna figure each other out somewhere down the line. Yeah.
Either way, as a parent, we accept our children. So.
Exactly. Yep.
So.
And it's
All right,
a growth
Randy.
process. It's we all change as human beings, hopefully.
Well, I think
But-
we could leave it there. It's
Yeah.
time to go to bed.
Good night.
So another
Good
work
night.
week. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having me.
to our
Thanks for being
listeners.
on,
Thank you to Paul. Paul, do you want to point us to your current projects?
Sure,
before
I'll
we
just
sign off?
spell it Paulogia. Paulogia.
Awesome.
Look for it on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter. Cool.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Night.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Bye.
Yeah, good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Nice chatting. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you too.